Hey, it's time for Windows Weekly, Halloween edition. Paul Thurrott's here, Richard Campbell. We'll talk about Windows 11 24H2, the preview update. Arc, the browser, is saying bye-bye, and people are saying moo-hoo. Plus, Microsoft and Google duke it out over cloud licensing. Plus, Microsoft's quarterly results. They had a pretty good quarter. All coming up next on a pretty good show, Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 905, recorded Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. Regulated goods content. Happy Halloween, everybody! It's time for Windows Weekly. Get together, you winners and dozers. Put on your costumes and enjoy the show starring Miss... Oh, wait a minute. You're in the wrong spot. There we go. Paul Thurrott. He is in Mexico City. He is also at Thurrott.com, wherever you are in the world. And we say hello, hola, to the man wearing the polo shirt dressed as a venture capitalist.
I'm dressed as a Celtics fan.
Richard Campbell, wait a minute, I got to show you Richard Campbell in all his glory from .NET Rocks.
You like this shirt?
RunAs Radio.
This is a good shirt. This is my ABBA shirt.
In silver lame today.
Yeah.
You could also use that as an emergency blanket if there should be an earthquake.
Getting warmer by the moment. So
I bet you are.
Feeling like a foil-wrapped hot dog right now.
Mylar isn't known to be a breathable fabric.
No, I like the weight of the shirt. It does feel good, but
yeah, well, actually, it's a metal thread, probably, right?
Yeah,
Not mylar.
but we were outdoors in Ibiza for the whole evening, so it was comfortable. We'll see.
And
how
I'm dressed
I last here.
as I normally do on the show.
Nothing
I will say,
unusual here.
Leo, with the hat on backwards like that.
Oh, is it backwards?
You are actually no. Hold on. You are. I thought it was the mask. This is a different hat. I'm sorry. So you were like the people here always wear their hats backwards. So I was like, that might be the most authentic Mexican thing I've ever seen.
This is the Cyclops version.
It's a good look.
I'm sorry.
And this actually is forwards. You're right.
Yeah.
This is the original San Francisco 49ers helmet. As
The Leatherhead.
The Leatherheads. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Welcome, everybody. Paul, I'm waiting till you get back. I've packaged up the Snapdragon Dev Kit just for you.
Thank you, sir.
It's ready to go. And I even threw in the HDMI to USB dongle.
Nice.
So you get the full
You
kit.
are the largesse that I feel. Right. It's just. Thank you, but thank you.
Actually, the same setup is now going into a Raspberry Pi, and as far as I could tell, it really is pretty much as performance. So,
wow,
nice,
wow.
My Snapdragon is here because there were many packages waiting for me after 3 weeks away.
You got home, Yay!
But I have not opened it. I've opened
So what are you
other
gonna
things. Well, I'm going to put it to work. I got a KVM switcher and things, but it's been a crazy week.
Well, good. I would love very much to know what you think of it. And, of course, Paul will have his as soon as he gets home. You're going home for Thanksgiving?
Paul?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking
I already
about
had
Richard
Thanksgiving.
Sorry.
I'm a Canadian.
I am going home.
Canadian.
Like
Thanksgiving's
civilized
over.
people.
That's
My
right.
apologies.
Yep.
Yeah, we're coming home the week before Thanksgiving.
They send us their used gourds and turkey carcasses.
We have to. I don't think my family could function without us there for Thanksgiving. My wife does everything, so
Yeah.
it's like
great.
literally.
Oh, that'll be fun. Well, I'll ship it so that it arrives at Thanksgiving.
And 2 years ago was the first time the younger daughter took on the Thanksgiving meal for the family. We all went there.
Yeah, we're not quite there.
That's sweet.
I don't think my daughter could handle a meal from the local Wawa, let alone Thanksgiving.
You'd think my son, the professional chef,
right,
with a best-selling cookbook, would be hosting Thanksgiving, but all we would get is turkey sandwiches, and that's
nice.
not gonna
It would be turkey reimagined.
Deconstructed.
Deconstructed turkey.
Yeah.
This is a foam. It tastes.
Turns out looks like a
slightly
chicken nugget.
turkey.
I'm going to send him a note saying, "Hey, you're the professional chef now. What are you doing for Thanksgiving?"
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
I do a pretty good deconstructed prime rib, but that's a different story.
I love prime rib.
Yeah.
As long as it has horseradish, I'm cool. I don't care.
I
And
smoke
juice.
the ribs.
What is happening?
I spile the
guys, I'm the
spinels,
mental
which is
one
a
here.
little
What are you
sear.
doing? What are you doing?
All right, let's talk
my
Windows.
job.
That's why people are here.
You want to
That's
work?
why
Let's work.
They're not here for our deconstructed pot roast.
Jeez.
Windows 11. What you
Oh, yeah,
got
that
for
thing.
us? Anything
Yes.
to celebrate?
Last week we were talking about week D and how 22, well, actually, I think it was 22 and 23H2 both got I guess it would have been 23H2 only, sorry.
Yeah, because 22H2 is out.
It's out of support next month, so this doesn't make sense. But 23H2 did get the preview update, predicted that we would see one for 24H2 by the end of the week, and we did. It came on Thursday and lines up exactly like that release as expected, right? So
nice.
In the nonsense that is Windows these days, this is a little, it's the least consistent nonsense, I guess. I got to look at this. I don't see this yet. So it's going to have.
I mean, they're still just trying to get 24H2 right for all of the platforms.
There's a little bit of a problem there as well, for sure. But there's some interesting things in here, and if you get it, it's slowly rolling out, including the ability. I'm just looking to see if it's on this computer. I don't think it is. No, it is not. The ability to change what the Copilot key does. Right? Which I'm actually kind of excited about.
Make it stop popping things up.
Yeah, it's going to be a left arrow key in my case because I hit the keyboard like Frankenstein. I don't know what I'm doing. Hey, fire! It comes out better in the typing, but when I say it, it doesn't make as much sense.
I'll just swap it out for the ICQ uh-oh noise. That'll be good.
Uh-oh,
yeah.
I remember that.
Hit it.
That was a great noise.
I also noticed on this particular computer, which is the Snapdragon based computer I have here, the widgets icon is now just the icon without any text. So I get little notifications and it animates. It just changed right now. But it doesn't give me the text. So it's just like a little square icon now instead of a rectangular one.
Is that normal? I've
never seen it before. So
mine has the weather and stock price and all that.
Right. Mine has the weather, but it's just the number. It doesn't say like on this screen. I wonder if actually this is the same computer. Maybe it's just a resolution thing but yeah, it's different. I don't know why. So that's my Windows experience. It's different. I don't know why.
Yeah. See, there's my my little doohickey, and
it looks normal.
It looks normal. It's got temperature, mostly sunny. Pops up news stories about people I don't care about.
Saw a notification there this morning I've never seen before, which said air quality severe.
Nice.
Severe.
Which I think it means you could bite it.
Wow.
You are in Mexico City. So.
Yeah, but yes, and that can be a problem here for sure. But it honestly, on days where the air quality is low, you can typically see kind of a brown haze out on the horizon. But today it was beautiful and clear. I don't know.
Might have been inside an oven. Who knows?
Yeah. Right. Maybe just meant in my apartment.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
That's severe.
Yeah. So anyway, that week D happened, and where are we in the calendar? I should look at this because I think Patch Tuesday.
It's usually week A next, right?
Week A, which usually is nothing. And then, so we have 2 weeks to go till Patch Tuesday. We'll see. I expect 24H2 to line up there. Again, they've been doing that. And aside from that, nothing major. Microsoft had a blog post that semi-explains why 24H2 is such a big update from an updating experience perspective.
Yeah.
Remember the last one was just a flip-the-switch enablement package type deal. And they actually made a lot of low-level changes.
It's an OS update, This week's RunAs talks about that very same thing.
The full swap experience. It's different.
Full OS update.
Yeah, it's the way things used to be. It's nostalgic.
Nice. The question is it still blue screening a lot of machines? Because, this time last week, we were a bunch of very unhappy people. Yeah.
So, look, I don't think it's a problem when there are specific issues that prevent a PC from getting the update, right? Like, I think this is the right way to handle it. I know some people would like to just update anyway. There are instances in which you can unplug a hardware peripheral and all of a sudden you're offered 24H2. But, just be careful with that kind of thing. The problem is when it's being offered, people are having problems, right? And that's a whole different level of reliability issue. So, there are several of those, unfortunately. As we discussed last week. But once this is on your disk, future updates will actually be a lot smaller and will install a lot faster, and they will hammer the CPU less. You still have to reboot the computer. That I think actually they might make a claim about that. Yeah, they actually say the reboot is also faster, I guess, which is like whatever. A reboot is a reboot, I think. But anyway, so we don't get a lot of this in Windows these days. They've done some low-level stuff, that improves the experience. It's the type of thing you're not really going to notice too much, honestly, in day-to-day, but it's nice to see someone paying attention to that bit of it.
Yeah, I'm just hoping this latest round of updates sort of settled a bunch of that stuff off.
Yeah. And then we've had 2 builds. They both happened last week, nothing major. I'm wondering if today, tomorrow, we'll get some more in the Insider program, and nothing major there. But they're changing the way that Windows Studio Effects notifies you that you can use it in the tray. So instead of going through quick settings only, or in the app, some of the apps that you'll see a little Windows Studio Effect icon will appear next to the camera. They're going to do this global experience where you can, from the tray, control those effects regardless of what app you're using. So that seems smart to me.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, now that we have finally got this big OS update, like, what's next?
Yep. I mean, last year we were talking about this big OS update like it might be Windows 12 because there was that option.
And you know what, man? I really think for the most part it is.
Yeah.
They just haven't. I think, what are they waiting for the Mac to have a version 12? So it happened last time.
Mac is on version 15, by the way. So
15.1. Yeah.
So I suspect it's tied to AI, and that if they had gone with Windows 12 with such a weak set of AI functionality, they might have gotten some bad PR from that. And I think, are we talking about this a little bit? No, I guess we talked about last week this notion of AI kind of not moving from Copilot, but adding these agentic, I hate that word, experiences, and that maybe the next version of Windows will add.
No, that would make sense. That the next version of Windows has a front end to an LLM that then directs software behind it, right?
Yep. Yeah, and this is for later, but there on the back end, GitHub. There's a story we'll talk about a little bit later, but GitHub Copilot.
Mm-hmm. It's been evolving.
We need a term for this. It's going multi-LLM, or not multi-LLM.
Multimodal? Oh, multi-model.
No, it's not that. You can choose the model on the back end. So obviously, maybe not obviously, today when you get GitHub Copilot, you're using whatever LLM Microsoft provides there, based on Copilot.
I believe was a variant of GPT-3.
Yeah.
Oh, pretty.
So they're going to offer different backends. We'll talk about that later. But I see that sort of thing coming to, I'll call it Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? This might make more sense. We get into that.
In the AI studio, there's like 1,100 models you can choose from. It's crazy.
So what we need is that thing I bring up from time to time, which is the orchestrator bit, right? And that I think Windows is the ideal environment for an orchestrator that can pick the right LLM for the right job, right? Like now it's pretty much hard-coded. So if there's a feature on your computer that does whatever, it's just written to whatever LLM or SLM or whatever it is that they're using. But I think in the future, it's going to be more dynamic and based on the type of hardware you have. We've talked about this notion of GPU, NPU, CPU, and there's a system-wide top performance rating that you get there, and some things are more efficient than others for certain tasks, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole, octopus of things up in my brain anyway, but that's how I see it. This is not based on any inside information. It's just sort of, for this thing to become sophisticated, I think it has to make that shift. And I think when we look at GitHub, what they're doing, this might be maybe the first step toward that.
Yeah, again, we talked about right from the beginning that Windows should be the hub for this. I just don't know that they can beat M365 to the punch, and M365 has the graph, and arguably is where people are working.
There's a case, if you just think about something like GitHub, it's a very specific thing. It's the perfect place to start this because it's a finite set of information, right?
Mm-hmm. With a specific kind of user.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's a great place to test. It's a small audience, relatively speaking. But this is another area where you could see GitHub, or I guess it would be GitHub Copilot, playing the role of orchestrator by saying, okay, you are programming in Go or C# or whatever language, and you're using this framework. We know that this particular LLM is best, most optimal, whatever it is, efficient for that thing. So we're going to use that for this. And if you switch languages or you're a different developer and maybe going in a different direction, you might get another one. And it's neat to give someone a choice, but actually the better thing to do is just to always use the right thing for the job. And that's where the orchestrator comes in.
For that particular. Who's got the best model around that particular skill set.
So this is step one, but again, it has to get choice is good. I mean, having this thing at all is good, right? Google has its own thing like this. I know other companies have things like this. OpenAI is expanding into this, of course, but for developers, in many ways, or for anyone really, and that's the point. I mean, ultimately, you want whatever it is, the platform, to orchestrate you to having the best experience, right? And you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, we always trying to figure out who's selling shovels in the gold rush, but near as I can tell, they're trying to own the shovel marketplace.
That's right. Yep. So anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves there. But, so Windows, not too much going on specifically this week, other than 24H2 did get that preview update. 23 and 24H2 appear to be lined up again, so we'll see what happens on Patch Tuesday. But that's about it.
Cool.
Well, that's great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our Halloween.
2.5 hours last week was a slog, but we nailed it, and I am
crisp.
Are we
17 minutes,
right?
We're
not there yet.
I think just in the interest of moving things along, we'll do an ad here because maybe it's a little soon, but normally I would wait. But we have so many wonderful advertisers who are just dying to give us money that I think we should do it. I might want to take this hat off before I do.
I don't know. It makes me smile every time, though, Leo.
I mean, is it Waldo Laporte or?
Yeah, where's... I guess we just, we should say before we do anything, Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Or Day of the Dead, if that's your thing.
Or,
whatever
you notice, Paul, so I have ordered more of my fabulous shirts from Abrazos Design in San Miguel de Allende.
Yeah, it's
and
nice.
I am wearing a lovely...
You would fit in here, I have to say. There's a lot of
do people wear these kinds of shirts?
Oh, my God, yeah.
I bought 6 more because I love them.
All Day of the Dead or just different designs?
No, all kinds, although there are a few Day of the Deads. They like sugar skulls for some reason. But
yes, if you can turn anything into a dulce, as they call it here, they will.
Why not, right?
Yep.
Yeah, go for it. So, but I just love these. And I decided that, I used to wear a blazer and dress shirt for these shows. And I just think I'm home. I'm not wearing pants.
I just think I roll out of bed and I land in front of the camera, and what happens?
I think it's also, I like the color. I want to wear something kind of colorful.
Yeah.
Because the
Here's what bugs me, Leo. I've been doing this show from home for whatever amount of time, 17 years, something like that.
Yeah.
You've been home for like 2 seconds. You already have this gorgeous set.
I know. I love it.
Stuff going on.
I have good people. That's why.
Yeah.
I have.
No, it's I
have
got
a
this
team.
piece of crap picture behind me.
Anthony, and Benito, and Kevin King, our producer and technical director.
Look at this thing.
John Ashley.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It's glowing. It's
the
colorful.
logo's awesome.
That was Anthony Nilsson's idea, and then Burke implemented it. Yeah.
I bet there's a lot of that going on in your place of work.
Really great team. And then Jammer B, who retired, he's moved to the Pacific Northwest, did leave. He came into on Sunday, and he was the guy who was kind of our profanity filter, and he left me 8 of these. Hey. So I'm ready. He's here in spirit, if you know. Hey, thank you. It's time to tell you about our sponsor for this segment of Windows Weekly, the great folks at 1Password. Maybe I will take this off because I should be serious. This is a serious new product from 1Password called Extended Access Management. Here's the question for you. Do your users always work on company-owned devices? Do they always use IT-approved apps? They're secure, right? No. No, there's something more scary than Halloween. Users with their BYODs. How do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps on those unknown devices? Well, that's why we have 1Password. Thank you. With the answer, Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM just, can't touch. If you want to visualize your company's security as like the quadrangle of a college campus, the beautiful green grass with brick paths leading from building to building. ivy-covered buildings. Those are, the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, the managed employee identities. Everything's nice. Birds are singing. It's a pleasant, wonderful place. But then there are the shortcuts worn through the grass that are, the actual paths people use, the straightest line from building A to building B. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities like contractors on your networks. Most security tools know about the brick paths. They only work on the brick paths. That's their bread and butter. Unfortunately, as you well know, the security problems that you face often take place on those little dirt paths, the shortcuts. That's where 1Password Extended Access Management really works. It's the first security solution that takes all those unmanaged devices and apps and identities and brings them under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected. Every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. It's security for the way we really work, we truthfully work today. Generally available now to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra, in beta for Google Workspace customers. They're moving fast with a great product. Check it out, 1password.com/Windows Weekly. That's the number 1. Let's see, go this way. PASSWORD, 1password.com/Windows Weekly. We thank them so much for their support of Windows Weekly. We thank you for your support by using that address so they know that you saw it here. 1password.com/Windows Weekly. Thank you for letting me interrupt the progress of this slow-moving train.
It would be a good movie to try to stop this train, like that Pennsylvania not Chris Pratt.
Stop! No, nobody's going to stop this train. This train's bound for glory. This train.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, let's talk about Microsoft 365.
Yeah, I'm curious what Richard knows about this. So Microsoft, having thoroughly overhauled Teams and then consolidated the consumer and commercial clients, has proactively told people they're going to change the UI again, not till next year, just to give people enough time to freak out and lose their minds.
Yeah.
And
it's like, get the shouting out now while nothing's happened.
Yeah.
It does. He won't be.
I don't use Teams as much as I used to. So when I was still part of BWW Media, we used Teams every single day. That was how we communicated. And now that I'm not, now that I'm on my own, I have no one to talk to, so I don't need it. But the way I recall it is there's obviously chats, and then there are also Teams. And they're consolidating Teams and what's called channels, which to me are
kind of the same thing anyway.
Our Teams, but maybe they're renamed. It's sort of a rebranding and putting it under chat. So here's the couple of things I think that are odd about this, and then you know more about this. You'll have something intelligent to say about it, which is the thing I first said, which is I think it's interesting and purposeful. They're talking about this now just to kind of get people because people in this space tend to lose their minds over stuff. Think about the reaction to the new Outlook as a great example, or the reaction to Teams all the time as a great example.
But the new Outlook is awful.
But the other half is that Teams is the center of an antitrust issue in the EU, where Microsoft tried to fix this problem by literally removing Teams from Microsoft 365.
Make it a separate install. All the MVPs got to do that this year.
Not good enough. And
they didn't give any direction either.
Yeah, right. Well, yes. The argument I think Microsoft would make, and certainly the one I would make against the Slack, now Salesforce, now EU complaint about this, is that yes, absolutely this thing started as a Slack-alike chat-based productivity tool. Yes. However, if you look at this tool today and compare it to Slack today, which looks like something someone slapped at the wall and then picked up the bits that fell down and turned it into a product, they're completely different. I mean, they're not completely different. They're at a very high level.
Still collaboration tools, right?
They are, but Teams is a much more sophisticated platform than Slack, in my opinion. And I think that this actually makes it look and seem a little bit more like Slack, and I'm not sure this is the right direction to go in right now.
Yeah, I know how you feel in there. I mean, the bigger thing is knowing where to look for stuff, right? And they created all these different categories, and now you're back to chasing around, where's my stuff? And the one thing they have not been able to solve is a search that simply works across everything. Right. I don't know why, but they just can't seem to crack the search problem. So if the fact that Teeper is in on that conversation is kind of, it does look like the boss said, guys, fix this, consolidate it.
Okay.
And they're just kind of doing
I wonder,
it.
do you think they're waiting on AI to solve the search problem? Although not everyone's going to pay for that,
I
right?
don't know. Microsoft's battled search from day one. I've never found a good search solution.
Right.
The one reaction I have when I put a search string into Outlook and I don't get a response back is not that the email doesn't exist. It's that I've failed to nudge Outlook the correct way.
That's right. And it's not Outlook. It's everything. I do this. Yeah. This happens to me in OneDrive. I can't tell you how many times I've searched in the file system for something that should be there with placeholders. Yeah. Whatever is there. Can't find it. Go up to the website, search there, and find it.
Yep.
Guys, come on. Come on.
So
Steve Jobs is rolling in his grave here. We got to fix this.
But I think at the base of this, the whole thing I've looked at is just like, are you guys just because you can't fix search? Is that really what this is about?
So I feel like Teams is on track to become like the Xbox dashboard, meaning every month or every whatever milestone, they're just going to change the UI and be like, is this okay?
Yeah.
Is this better?
That's how you know you're feature complete when you're down to, I can add a bad feature now because I get two versions out of it. One when I put it in and one when I take it out, right?
Yep.
So,
well, the good news here
is... Let's call it mature.
Yeah. So this isn't rolling out till next year. It won't fully roll out until mid-2025.
And that's also where I thought maybe this was we're fighting the boss thing here. The boss has told us to do it, so we're telegraphing it now so that you all
But now they can get complaints and say, well, and if history is any guide, and I feel like it is, it will be later than that, right? I mean, we'll see, but it may be something that happens later.
Everything takes longer, and maybe there's a better idea out there. Like, without a doubt, they kicked off conversation. Mm-hmm. It does hint we don't know what to do, so yell at us, and maybe we'll glean a better idea from it.
Speaking of Steve Jobs rolling in his grave, Apple has a fun little feature, cross-platform feature called Handoff, right? Where Apple kind of, I don't want to give him too much credit here, but I
give him credit. Come on.
Arguably have, in some ways, led the way to this kind of. It's not that we don't have file systems, but this notion of we're going to work with documents and not think about where they are kind of mentality, right? Which is hard for people like me, and I think most people listening or watching this, to kind of wrap their heads around because we have very specific ideas about that and whatever. But anyway, they allow you to, within the Apple ecosystem, if the apps support it, and of course Apples do, you work on a document on an iPad or a phone or whatever, iPhone, and then you can kind of pick up where you left off on a different device, like on a Mac or whatever. So Microsoft just added this capability to its core Office apps, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint on iPhone, iPad, and Mac, right? And so now you can use, the Microsoft tool you may want to use, or maybe your workplace enforces you to use, and it will provide that same functionality. It'd be neat if we had something like that in Windows. Anyway. There you go. I wonder if there's a world in which Microsoft could build on Handoff and just have that kind of work between Windows and an iPhone, maybe. Or,
I'll tell you, it works with OneNote, but it doesn't work with Notion. Or not Notion.
Notion. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Okay. You forgot the name of Loop already.
Well, I got it. Yeah.
I'll just say it again, Richard. What is this Loop you speak of?
I've learned now, because, often, especially when I'm doing whiskey research, I'm working from the phone because I'm in the shop and I'm looking at a few different whiskeys and things. If I don't leave that phone open when I open it on my PC, it just doesn't appear.
Yes. Yes. I have
and
this
vice versa.
It's not just Loop, by the way, but you have. By the way, you just reminded me. OneNote is now probably 22 years old-ish.
Yep. And it has that thing nailed.
And it's always been documentless. That was kind of the point. Like at some point, they allowed you to actually access the file, and if you wanted to, you could back it up or move it around. But OneNote was designed from the beginning not to have documents. Like you're not saving, you're not control S-ing anything. It just kind of works. So maybe we should be. They did nothing with it, but actually they did have that quite a while ago. So that's
my favorite OneNote thing was when the girls figured out that that I used a shopping list, and that was on the
they could
kitchen
add stuff
PC.
to it.
Yeah, and as soon as they saw things getting checked off because they knew we were in the grocery store, the list grew.
That's cute. That's pretty smart.
In the old days, kids were lazy. They would have to go with you to the store, and they would secretly throw stuff in the cart, hoping you wouldn't notice till checkout time, or not at all.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But they found that if they put it at the top of the list, I don't get it. You need to put it at the bottom of the list.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. That's good. Richard mentioned Notion. So Notion has, Notion, the app, which is also a platform, and I was
let's be clear, desperate to be a platform.
Right. So the reason I said that is you're starting to get the sense that Notion has some componentization, something like Loop does, right? Now, it's not going to be as sophisticated, not going to be as big of a platform, but they bought Cron, remember, and turned it into their calendar app. And I forgot the name of it now, but they bought a third-party kind of privacy-focused email solution, and they're turning that into Notion Mail. And so you see the start of this kind of light Google Workspace / Microsoft 365, I don't want to call it replacement exactly, but it's kind of getting there.
Skiff. It was
Can't
Skiff.
say I'm crazy about this. Yeah.
So that's okay. I'm
what do you
curious
think?
about this.
We used to make fun. We used to say that no program is done until it's, at least on Linux, until it's an email client.
Yeah.
But that was a
joke.
joke.
I mean, they're separate clients. Honestly, the surprise here is that they didn't just integrate the stuff directly into the main app, right?
Do they want to be like Zoho Office or Google Office?
Yeah, I think so. I think Google Docs, or whatever you want to call that, I think is the goal. The appeal of Notion is there's a lot of versatility there that there's things you can't do easily in something like Google Docs. And Keep is kind of weird, and so you have this thing that kind of acts like it's obviously you can use it to take notes, but it's also a collaboration tool. It's also honestly a document creation tool. There's gonna have to come a day where they charge everyone for this. It boggles my mind this far into this that they've never once come to me and said, "Hey, Paul, it seems like you use this a lot. You should be paying for it." And that's fair, by the way.
Yeah,
they never have. So I wonder
and they should,
if,
without a doubt.
Yeah, so some form of I don't know, storage. I think they need a chat-based collaboration thing. I can't believe I just said that out loud. But some simple something that, like, Microsoft Teams is big and powerful, but it's also this very standard kind of Microsoft solution. Of course, it is. Slack is a disaster of a. I can't stand Slack. Something that looks like Notion, which I think is a nice kind of clean, modern, minimalist UI, but provides that functionality, and you combine it with these things. That is.
Well, and platformification is a VC trope, right? So these folks have taken a bunch of money, and they've been trying to build their product and get it to a place, and sooner or later they're going to get pressure on these things. And
yes, I mean, right? It's yes, absolutely.
Acquiring companies is a great way to show value for the money that's been invested. Right.
Yep.
Like it's an easy technique. It's hard to spend $20 million well. It's easy to buy something for $20 million and then consider it worth $20 million.
But then the next step, I think, which is also difficult, is replicating what's special about Notion in these other apps, and then also getting the kind of buy-in from users, customers, to actually use these things. Right. The trick for me is I don't understand using another app to do the thing I'm already doing.
Yeah, why are you bumping me out of the space I was already in?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
it's interesting. I guess
the world doesn't need more platforms, but give it your shot.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Arc later, for example, the browser company. There is a place in this world, in our space, for people coming in from the outside, looking at something and saying, this thing is good, but it could be simpler. It could be less expensive. Maybe it could be less locked into your little ecosystem or your gigantic, whatever the thing is that they're trying to provide value with, right?
It also occurs to me they've acquired both these products. It is hard to integrate an external product into your existing product. So this may be the interim phase.
Oh, right? Okay, interesting.
While they work on how do we unify these things.
Would they turn it into what's it called, Netscape Communicator, right? Yeah. Where it's like all the things in one thing, which is actually what Phil Valdi's done too, by the way. I mean, I don't know if that's.
But yeah, it's not that simple. We built on different stacks. Like actually integrating effectively is hard. It'll take a while.
This might be an age or a mentality thing too, but if you've ever tried any third-party Microsoft Office alternatives, you've seen that some of them are just one app. You know, you don't get individual apps. Like I want to run the word processor. I don't care about the other apps. So when the whole thing comes up, I'm always like, ugh, like I immediately don't like that. And there's a possibility that Notion would become a little too top-heavy if they decided to, jam it all together. But I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that. I think once you get sovereign app status, that you own some screen space. The more things you put in, the more time you have that screen space.
Yeah, that's what Netscape. Jeez, can't get off Netscape. It's what Netflix is trying to do with games.
Yep.
You see this all over the place. We could see that this is a form of insurtification in a way, I guess.
In a way, but it's
in the old days of computing, you saw this. What was the Lotus product where they wanted to
Symphony,
and it was a flop, right? But the idea
because it wasn't 1, 2, 3 plus other things. It was this brand new object,
and it was all these things.
What was it called? I can't remember the name of it. Relative data, I don't know, whatever, some kind of special new database that Steve Jobs
relational
with.
Relational
database, yeah.
But I could think over and over again, of programs that tried to bundle all of this into functionality into one, and
but I wonder if there
always is a flop, except for Emacs.
Well,
Emacs is a winner.
I mean, you could argue Microsoft Office went this route, right? Before it was a true suite. First, it was a bundle. And then it became this kind of integrated suite.
But they're still discrete apps, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes, they are.
People still understand. I'm in Word now. I'm in Excel now. I'm not.
Which was the 95 problem when you could edit a spreadsheet inside of a Word document and the Excel toolbar would appear and it was like, what is happening to this Frankenstein's monster?
I confess, I still am a little nostalgic for Microsoft Works.
There you go.
I thought that was, that was.
So what the problem with Microsoft Works was, right?
What?
Well, it's too cheap, one thing, and people loved it, but it was not compatible. The document formats weren't compatible.
It was RTF, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't use doc. It was.
But that's why I liked it. It was RTF.
Yeah.
There's a place in this world for it works. Well, I guess that's what Google Docs is, right?
And Apple, Apple took what was ClarisWorks, which is the same as Microsoft Works, split it up into the iWorks suite, which is more like Office, where it's discrete apps that integrate together.
Those apps are pretty good.
They're free with all Macs, right? They come with your laptop, your iPad, and your Mac, and so and they're
good
enough.
And Paint, and screw you guys, I don't care.
Yeah, they're good enough.
Yeah. I think they are good enough for most people, actually.
Yeah. I think if there's anything wrong with them is they're too pretty. People don't take them seriously because
that's right. Yeah.
I wonder if the other side of this for Notion is that as they were heading down, starting to test, will people pay for this, and they weren't getting results. It's like, well, what if we added more to it?
Yeah.
Now, would you buy? You know?
I had said they've never tried to charge me. There was one instance where I was adding like header images to the notes, and at some point they said, we don't store this for free. You have to pay for that. And I was like, I just won't do that anymore. So there needs to be a better monetization plan than Paul likes images in his notes.
I do pay for Notion. I don't know why I pay for Notion. I use it less than you do.
Do you have any idea?
Huh?
How much is it? Like,
I don't know. It's not much. It's like $40 a year or something. It's not a horrible. But I think they now have tiers.
Yeah, I'm sure they have.
So that may cause tears because that may be a lot more expensive. I don't know, but I'll look. I'll see how much I pay. Isn't that funny? I have
per seat per month.
Yeah, I can't remember. I started when Notion first came out. I, like you, Paul, I was really bullish on it, and I put a lot of stuff. I've been looking for an Evernote replacement. For so long.
Forever.
Yep. By the way, that may end up being Evernote at some point. We'll see if they ever get it right. But so you soured on Notion? Is that what you're saying? Like you don't like it as much?
No, I haven't actively soured. I just don't use it that much anymore.
Right.
You remember when we did the Alaska cruise? I had a whole Notion page I shared with you. And it was a great way to put travel plans together. And I still do that when we're going on a trip, all the travel plans, because then you could share it with everybody. And it could be a web page. It could be a standalone web page, which people with a link.
I don't know if Notion was the start of this, if they formalized it, if they literally invented it. But there's a thing you see a lot in Notion notes where, and you see this in email newsletters now, where there's a lot of emoticons or emojis or whatever, starting a paragraph maybe or within a header, and it's kind of become like a style. And it's. To me, it's Notion influenced, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it's funny because Notion doesn't have an easy way to embed graphics, right?
Right. They don't have an easy way actually to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
You just have to,
Well, that's part of the problem.
But yeah.
But they do have it. It's they kind of prefer you have these header graphics.
Yeah,
And
that's the thing I was talking
and the
about.
icons and all that. And it's become a style. Loop does that too, right?
Of course.
Sort of, but it's also a nuisance to embed
But Loop
things
is also the last in a list of these things, right? I mean, Loop didn't invent any of this. When you see Loop, you're like, oh my God, it looks exactly like Notion. You got to be kidding me.
We had an advertiser. I wish they were back because they were really good. Called Coda. Did you ever play with that? Same idea.
I don't think so.
There's a guy in our YouTube chat who says he actually prefers it to both Loop and Notion.
Yeah, but you always find people who there's
you got to have a believer.
Obsidian is one of them. There's
Yeah.
people who say, well, what I want is Notion, but I want it to be, offline, by the way, is a valid
Big
complaint.
one. Very
I want
valid.
to have control over that file, maybe, and have it in my file system. Maybe I want to sync it through OneDrive or whatever. There are definitely alternatives. But, Notion is kind of an Apple-like thing. It's like, look, we do our own thing. It works. People seem to like it. And, we know there's competition, but who cares?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They just had their big summit or whatever, and the CEO talked. And I don't know if you noticed this when I launched Notion today. They said splash page with all the new features. And
Yep.
it's they did AI early, and I don't know anybody who's crazy about the idea of AI embedded in Notion. I don't know. I just
I don't like it. And everywhere I see it, I as is so often the case with me and AI, I always trigger it by mistake. So in Notion, when you can see in the notes, I've written Microsoft 365 /earnings/ that's where it wants to.
As soon as you hit
you want
slash,
to use AI?
it goes,
Is that what you wanted?
Oh.
It's like, no, this is a common character in the English language, idiots. Maybe you could have used something, unique.
This is not your control key.
Yeah, so it's that came up for me 5 times this morning, right? It's like, no, I still don't want whatever they're calling their AI.
That's
little face.
Trying to jam too much functionality.
Yeah, Control J is a shortcut too. So if you look in the bottom corner of the notes, you can see the little cartoony. By the way, Mac, the original Mac logo, one of the early Mac logo like faces. Remember they had the 2 sides with the 2, the eyes. Looks
the Picasso.
It looks like a simplified version of that logo. It's kind of funny when you think about it. Anyhow, okay.
But we should say we use this.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And Notion is sticky. That's for me.
Yeah.
Switching stuff is hard. I was on OneDrive, OneNote from the year before it came out publicly until, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. And it's hard to move past something that you have that much data in that you've used for so long. It's hard. And now I get to this, and I don't know. You'd have to be pretty damn good to make me leave Notion at this point.
Well,
right?
Richard, could you want to make a case for us to use Loop instead of Notion?
Nope.
Well, yeah, no. If you like to manually make sure that something is synced, then
is that
Loop
the
might
problem?
be
Is
the solution for
reliability?
you.
It's reliability is fundamental in this.
Yeah, as soon as you're not sure if your data survived, you're not happy anymore.
Not worth using.
Every time the browser Chromium updates, it flashes around. Just to remind you, it's an Electron app.
The one thing I don't use Loop.
It's not a
course,
confidence builder.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
But one thing that Loop has that I think could help it, and I always thought could help it, and maybe it will be successful one day, is the keyboard shortcuts that everybody knows from like Microsoft Word all work the same. So if you're used to making headings in that, the Control Alt whatever number, that works in Loop, right? That's not how you do that in Notion. You have to learn a new way to do things in Notion. So Notion supports like Markdown style # or you literally do the slash, right? /h whatever. It's different. You can get used to it. You can get used to anything. You get used to getting punched in the face every day, I guess. But
you don't want to. But
you don't want to. Then that's how I approach Microsoft Teams. So it's just no. I'm kidding.
I think you were thinking
Teams got pretty good actually. So anyway, we'll see. I mean, for me, Notion is this thing. I use it for one thing, but I see these things. I see these acquisitions. I see them coming up with new products, and I'll keep my eye on. It's like Proton is like this. Like this is this is interesting.
They're trying.
Okay, that was a lot of time on. So the announcement of an app that will not be available anytime soon is the short version of that story.
Nice. This is the Notion Mail.
The Notion Mail. It's like, here, look how pretty it might be someday.
Might be someday.
They acquired Skiff, which was the secure email
that's it. Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Skiff had a different kind of approach to things. They were actually more like Proton, right? They were security and privacy focused. So Notion is not. Not that they're security and privacy, averse or anything like that. But that's certainly not their focus, right? Their focus is on making productivity simple, is how I sort of see it. But we'll see. Okay. So we talked about GitHub Copilot earlier. I just to make sure that was clear, GitHub Copilot today uses Microsoft's whatever the backend. Rich, it's ChatGPT-3. You say basically.
Yeah.
What they're providing,
that's what it was
right?
originally, and I don't know that they've moved to 4. I think it's one of the 3+ variants.
Okay, and again, for the finite data set that is this thing, this is probably fine, right? And is probably one of the more accurate AIs, if you will, in the sense that it's working off this limited data set. It's good. It seems like this is a good way to start. I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, we were talking about Satya Nadella in his letter to share. Oh, no, that was something earlier than that. No, it was earlier than that. Sorry, it was tied to the Copilot Wave 2 announcement, was saying that these LLMs have become commodities. A fascinating thing to say about the company you've invested $13 billion in. But, the inference here being that we're going to work with other LLMs as well. And of course, they've got their own thing happening in-house now as well, right? So they've opened GitHub Copilot up to multiple third-party LLMs, or are opening. I'm not sure if it's actually happened yet, but they announced that at their own developer show. So Anthropic Cloud 3.5 Sonnet, Google Gemini 1.5 Pro, and then OpenAI specifically. Is it O1? Is that how we're saying it?
4.0.
This new one, the smaller one. I think it's just O1. I think is how we would say that. There's O1 Preview, O1 Mini. That might be all of them. I don't remember, but that's interesting. And so, like we said earlier, it's good to give people that choice. I guess better would be maybe you just do the right thing, and you're paying for Copilot.
Yeah, always the question is like, what does the LLM bring to the table here?
Right, and how would you decide? I mean, is it going to be a goofy little wizard? It looks like you're trying to code in C#. You might want to try Sonnet. Okay, thanks. Maybe I will. Here's an idea. Why don't you just do that for me? And I think that's, like I said, I think that's where it goes earlier, or later. I look at this as the first step toward that, and I look at this as a hint at what they might do with Microsoft 365 Copilot specifically. And we'll see. We'll see how these things evolve. But really, I have to say, I did not quite expect this.
No, it almost seems like political maneuvering, because certainly there's been pressure on Microsoft to show that they're not too in bed with OpenAI.
Did you see Satya this morning in the Google earnings call say that, I can't remember what the number was, something like 30% of all our coding is done by AI first?
You're talking Sundar Pichai said this in Google's earnings.
Not Satya, Sundar.
Yeah. No, I didn't see that.
It's kind of a shock, but it validates the Copilot, the GitHub Copilot model.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I don't like that he said that. And there's a couple of reasons.
That's a weird thing to say, because there's still people looking at it. Like, I'd be annoyed as a developer if you said that about my work.
Yep.
I've certainly been benchmarking the snot out of teams using GitHub Copilot, and 20 to 30% productivity gains is the number these days.
Right.
And that's more code checked in with less remediation.
Yep.
Right. Like,
I
when
think
they first start using it, they do a lot of back and forth, but they get better.
The problem for Google, I think, is that, and this is a perception thing, I'm not saying this is the reality, but they've gotten off on a bad foot with AI somehow, which is kind of astonishing, because they were there longer than anybody, really. And I think
they were the threat from the beginning, right? Google Brain was what OpenAI was made for.
The very right, exactly. The models that we have now are just very much based on the work they did first, for sure. They basically invented this, if you will, but they've been face raking ever since. And when you come out and say, a quarter of the new code of Google is generated by AI, you're like, oh, that's why it stinks so bad. No, I think it's the automatic response, isn't it? Like, I don't know that I would have said this.
No. Yeah. And again, I think it's right. Internally, politically, it was a bad thing to say. Externally, it's a bad thing to say. Like, maybe. What are you thinking?
It was a curious.
Send that boy to CEO school.
I saw it in the headline. I'm like, I don't like it.
Yeah. That seemed unwise.
I think
interesting.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, so Apple Intelligence finally arrived this week, changed the world. So we're living in an Apple world now. Everything's different. What am I talking about? So I don't know if you even noticed it happened, but iOS, iPadOS 18.1, macOS Sequoia 15.1 have the, I don't know if they're calling it this, I'm calling it this, the first wave of Apple Intelligence features. It's all the stuff we all, know and kind of don't care about too much. Writing tools like the ability to summarize long documents, but useful for sure. Writing help, right, which most people could use for sure. In all those places, well, in every place really, but let's say in things like messages, mail, et cetera, in a web form, whatever it might be. So good. This gets a lot more interesting in 18.2, which is happening in December, and Apple has been very explicit about at least 4 waves of this before the middle of next year. So we're going to be dealing with this for quite a while. But the one new bit of information that came out of their announcements was this past week is that the EU, which was I'm going to call it region non grata because of all their antitrust stuff. Now they're saying they are going to bring it to the EU in the spring, which, by the way, will be when it's ready. So,
well, there's that. But it's also like, does it pass the rules?
Yeah. They've obviously been actively talking to the EU. So I think for them to say that, it suggests maybe they found that answer. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
You can't have driver's license until you've had a few accidents. So I don't know how you write AI legislation having not actually used the product.
Yeah, we don't want that first accident to be Skynet and the Terminator robots. Yeah. But I know. I've fallen into that trap.
Don't give them the levers of power.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. So Apple Intelligence, whatever. I actually think they're going to get this right. I think overall it's fine. These are good, solid improvements. Whatever. Who cares? But
I don't know if they are. I hope they do. I just reminded once again that they had to jump. That this is not the usual Apple way.
I should be clear when I say that. I mean the entire range of this stuff, not the stuff that just came out Monday or Tuesday. It's the things they'll be doing in 0.2, 3, 4 over some period of time. You can see the people who are testing 18.2, which I am doing, by the way, on my iPhone. Although I don't use a lot of this stuff. I just, like most people, I think it is there. It's getting more interesting. So this will be true over the course of it, I think. I like the way Siri lights up. That's a thing. So that's
it's
fun.
New. Yeah.
Siri's good.
She's just as dumb as she ever was, but
yeah. But now it could be like a dumb blonde guy. So Siri can be all kinds of things.
First time it happened, because what happens is, let me see if I can show everybody.
I'm surprised I didn't set off every device in this apartment when I just said that word, by the way. I usually
no. But if you say the word seriously, it will
and I say it all the time.
So the first, I'm going to press the button.
Do the little animation there. It's nice,
and the first time it happened, I thought I was drunk.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that was good.
Did I just take LSD?
It's like, what the heck?
Why is
my screen
phone
just
throbbing?
Throbs.
I think it's nice. Like, it's pretty. It's birdie.
She says, by the way, I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oh, she says that a lot. Yep.
Yeah.
You don't have to be mean, Paul.
I didn't get that. Could you try
I don't
again?
Like you very much. I don't like you.
I think we're in a loop here, Siri.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see what she says.
I'll be sitting here in the morning, and I talk to the news as one would when I'm reading it on my device. And then the little speaker next to me says, okay. Here's a morning playlist to start off your day. And I don't know. I have no idea where that came from. I don't know what possessed this thing.
This is really our true nightmare about AI is not...
Right.
That it's going to bomb the world and take over. It's that it's going to be annoying as hell.
This happens in Mexico as much as it happens out in the world at home, right? We've all experienced this. You're out. It doesn't matter where you are. You could be walking through an airport. You could be walking on a city street. There's some guy coming down the street, and you can see he's just talking to the air. He's like, and even though we intellectually understand that people have earbuds now, and this is a thing, there's still that moment where you're like, is he a crazy person?
No, you never know for sure. Is it multiple personality disorder or is it Bluetooth? Like, it's one or the other.
When we got lunch today, I had this experience. This happens almost every day when I'm outside, right? So I still go through this all the time. But now we have these things that are talking to us when we don't want them to. Yes. And now we are the crazy people.
Yeah. No.
Because how insane is it to talk to this thing and say, stop. Mm-hmm. I don't want the stop it. Stop.
Lisa,
I've noticed it talks more when it's wrong. Right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
When I tell Home Assistant what I wanted to do and it's just doing it, it says almost nothing.
Exactly.
The moment it doesn't know what to do, it goes on and on and on.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, dear
like
God, yes.
This is a grade 4
Here's what
student
I
who
found
didn't
on the
do his
web on
homework.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I got something for you.
It's like, listen, if you have more to say to me than okay, you did it wrong. Just stop.
Because with Google, I'll walk up to the smart display. It'll be like a picture of me with like a girlfriend from the 1980s. And I'll be like, Google, do not show this photo. And it goes, okay. Do you want us to stop showing this photo on the smart display? Yes. Okay. We will stop. It's like, stop talking. Just freaking do it. You know? Meanwhile, my wife's like, who are you talking to? What's going on? I'm like, would you hurry up? You know, like get rid of the picture.
Do you change the voice? I changed the voice to make it.
I changed the Siri voice for the first time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I make it, it's a kind of a...
Yeah, I don't know what it. It's not here right now. I don't. Yeah,
Here,
I did.
let me
I did
play
change
it for you. You tell me this. I love this voice.
Okay.
What's the weather going to be like in Petaluma today?
The forecast is calling for rain today.
Yeah,
So it's kind of
should have asked for the
urban,
weather
kind of
on
hip,
Mars.
kind of cool.
Yeah, no, you definitely switched to hipster voice.
I like
Hipster
it.
voice.
Hipster voice. It's voice 3. If people want to
How's your
know.
vinyl?
Weather's going to be
collection
cool today. Perfect for making pickles.
I wish it would. See, if it had a little personality, that'd be really cool. But it's just like an annoying nitwit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really a problem, I think.
Yep.
It's not.
It is what Mark Benioff said. It's Clippy 2.0.
Yeah,
You
he
know,
did say
hey,
that,
it looks
didn't
like
he?
you're trying to make a ransom note or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
no, I'm not. But thanks for popping up, you irritating little paperclip. And you know, this is this not the next generation? It kind of is, right?
Yes.
Anyway, all this
And
stuff is
certification
subjective.
of all things all
Yeah,
around.
yeah. Everything must be made terrible. Oh, do you like using this product?
Yeah, it's
Good.
just
We're
like
gonna screw
everything's a
it
little
up.
crappier.
Yeah.
Like everything. Like
Yep.
everything. Like
Yep.
everything. If I said everything, everything.
I think Lou's in a loop.
It's just a little bit worse.
Which is, I know
my hat,
Notion.
by
Some
the
people
way.
don't like it. Some people
Your
do.
hat's
Nice.
better.
I like that you change your hat every time you come back.
This
That's
is
good.
a really good hat.
But Notion to me is the one thing that flips the bit in certification. It's the one thing that so far, and by the way, they'll absolutely screw it up. This thing that I love will be ruined. There's no doubt about it. But to date, you know, it's just sitting there working every day. We use it extensively.
Yeah.
Great. You know, I don't really have any major problems. Sometimes I get on a plane and I can't use the thing. But then again, most times I'm on a plane, there is Wi-Fi. So, you know, we're...
If you really need to use it, drop the $20.
Yeah. Well, or just open that page, I guess, before you leave. I think it keeps the most recent whatever number of pages in memory or whatever it is, but I don't know. Anywho, yeah. So Apple Intelligence, yeah, whatever. But the big thing to me is Apple. Apple finally moved to a 16 gigabyte RAM minimum on all their Macs, and by all their Macs, I mean even their older Macs, including the M2 and M3 based MacBook Air.
Oh,
have
interesting.
Been bumped
I
up
did
to a
not notice
6.
that.
Really cool. Now, in the PC space, you could probably buy a computer with 4 gigabytes of RAM if you wanted to, but you know, 8 gigs is probably more standard, I would say.
Yeah.
With Copilot plus PC, Microsoft has specified a 16 gigabyte.
That's probably
minimum,
why.
which to me is what should be the case. So we're in this. I started thinking about it like planets aligning. Like every once in a while, the recommendations all make sense. You know, because I advise people macro windows. You know, 16 kind of the minimum. I mean, 32 gigs better. I mean, for most people, especially people watching this show. And if you have a Copilot Plus PC or that kind of class PC, gaming PC, whatever it might be, 32 is even better. You know, I went back this morning to all the books that I have still in manuscript form to see what my recommendations were over the years. The oldest one I found was from Windows Vista. Windows Vista would have worked with 512 megabytes of RAM, if I remember this correctly. And I was recommending at least 2, I guess, gigabytes. Right. It sounds, I'm trying to sound, gigabytes. Yeah, gigabytes. 3, 4, whatever would be better. And remember, at that time, the big limitation was that most PCs were 32-bit, right? And so 4 gig was it. And it would take some of that for, sorry about that.
Hello?
For video
Hello.
and whatever.
HP still
By the
selling
way-
PCs with 4 gigs around.
Yeah, of course they are. Of
cheap,
course
cheap,
they are.
cheap.
Did we
think that's
just
the
do
fun
something bad on the show that I missed?
What's that?
Because we just got a notice that says live visibility restricted. This is TikTok, I think. Regulated
boy.
goods content.
Regulated goods.
Do you think my Russian hat?
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
Do you think that bothers them?
No.
I love it.
Hello. Is good regulated.
We would like 30% of whatever you're making on selling that hat.
By the way, I love the suggestion from Besto5 in our Club Twit Discord. Instead of inchification, we say inclipification.
Nice.
I think
Nice.
that says it all, doesn't it?
That's pretty good.
Inclipification.
So Richard found a 4 gigabyte RAM HP. Of course he did. God,
He did.
jeez, HP. Come on, man. So,
$400.
jeez. So, look, 16 gigs, guys. That's all I'm saying. Minimum. This is it.
Yeah.
It's 2024. Let's grow up.
Tell
and
me
wake
you
up here.
want
Like,
to
come
watch
on.
Windows
So I think-
11 boot
yeah.
in 4 gigs.
Yep.
Tell
Or,
me.
yeah. So in the Vista, there was an XP SKU, but Vista was the first one that came with both 32 and 64-bit disks in the box. Windows 7, looking back at what I wrote about at the time this morning, was when that shift was mainstream. And yep, you'd be stupid not to do this. And the big thing there, of course, was 8 whatever gigs of RAM. You could go up from there with a 64-bit platform, which was good. There are theoretical maximums that are enormous. I don't remember the numbers anymore. 192, gigabytes at one point, some number of terabytes now, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
realistically speaking, you're buying a computer for yourself, so it's going to be 16, 32, 64 probably is probably where it's going to land.
Dude,
But-
there are terabyte SQL servers out there. Terabyte
oh no,
RAM.
of course. I mean for people, like just for
For
of course.
people, not databases.
Just
Yeah.
want to
People.
remind you that Server 2025 supports up to 4 petabytes of RAM.
Yeah, I mean, and server went 64-bit first, of course.
Yeah.
And that's where you start that stuff.
And that's also because you're storing data sets in RAM for speed.
Well, and you are paging between 256
Yeah.
terabyte RAM
Exactly.
blocks.
Exactly.
Because how many 256 terabyte
Look,
RAM blocks do you really need?
There are actually 2 workloads for that. There's the SQL Server thing that you
Yeah.
said, and then there's people that use Chrome and have lots of tabs. Right? So
Chrome tabs,
You,
absolutely.
you also
How
have the
much
same
Slack are you using?
Exactly.
It's funny.
There's a lot of Slack.
I know you probably used Drag and Dictate back in the day, Paul.
Back
I
in
know
the day.
David
I was
Pogue
convinced
used to
that was
write
my
his,
future. Yep.
his indexes that way. He wouldn't write the book that way, but he would
Right.
use the dictation to do the index, which is actually
I
quite clever.
had started getting pain in my hands,
Right.
and I thought it's over. I'm going to be sitting there like a cripple, and I'm going to be dictating books, and that's how I'm going to write.
It got much better, not when the CPU speeds went up, but when RAM went up,
Yeah.
because it had to use memory for its dictionary.
So, by the way, related to that, I don't know if you guys saw this, and I can't remember which AI it was. It might have been an OpenAI thing. They were talking about how this thing actually works better. We know that if you can cut the data set down, it works better. They found that if you just let it work for a moment, it actually works better. So instead of coming back
thinks a little
instantly,
while. Yeah,
it will
yeah.
say, give it a second, hold on. And it actually is more reliable and accurate if
Yeah.
it does that.
That's the new
fascinating to me.
reasoning.
Just
LLM.
run the loop again. Like we're going to do, just run it 3 times or whatever.
But think, actually, there is a prompt that people use all the time that helps, which is like when you give a code, say, is there anything you could improve in that code? Or
I love it.
look at your answer and see if there's anything you could improve in the answer. So
This is what you
literally,
say to a child, where
Yeah.
you say
Is there
something
something-
like, "Yeah, "Is that your final answer?" Or,
you really want to go with that.
Before I set fire to your
that's,
bed.
That's,
Do you
you're
wanna
wearing
tweak
that, huh? Is that you're wearing that for breakfast, but when you go to school, you're going to change, right? Like,
Yeah.
that kind of conversation.
There's nothing like a belly shirt at breakfast. I think.
Yeah. I mean, the Dragon. Didn't the Dragon naturally speaking stuff actually come out of IBM research originally? Wasn't that IBM?
It might have been that they were. It wasn't Boston. It might have been that they were
I thought so.
at IBM and then moved out. But
Yeah.
and then Nuance bought everything.
Yeah, and then
Who bought Nuance?
I just probably
Microsoft tried, I
Microsoft,
remember.
right? I think.
Did they get it?
I
Yeah,
think
they did. I think they did. Yeah. So it's all within Microsoft. But my point being that there are some things a computer does that having a lot of RAM is very helpful. And I'm sure AI is in that, like speech recognition, is in that
Yes.
category.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
more
yeah.
of the
The
model
more
you can keep in
memory.
RAM,
Yep.
the better
Faster
it's
you
going to
go.
do. All of Apple's iOS devices, new ones, are 8 gigs,
Right.
which is a
That's
big
right.
jump for them.
Yep.
Remember, they used to say when they were shipping 8 gig Macs, Well, 8 gigs on an M1 is just as good as 16 on Windows.
I still have people parroting this back to me, and it's like, no,
it's not true.
It's if you buy an M1 MacBook
memory.
Pro and you're just playing with it a little bit, it's fine. But it like day to day, every day, and then for the next 3 to 5 years, no.
So I did order a new Mac Mini. I hesitated for a long time, but I finally did. And I thought, well, put 64 gigs.
Did you get a Pro chip?
Because the correct amount of RAM is always more.
It's always, and you can't add later.
This is where Apple gets you, right? So every 8 gigs is like another $200.
It's $800 or something for the 64 gigs. It's ridiculous.
But that's how they get you. But this is there's a word for this, right? You go into the dealership to buy because you saw an ad for a car, and then you walk out with double the price, whatever. So
not to further digress, but you do need to ask me sometime about an African gray parrot, Dragon Naturally Speaking, and X10 controllers because. That was an experience.
I think you have to tell that now, Richard. You can't leave us hanging.
His name was Timmy. It's my buddy's bird. And we got one of the Dragon Naturally Speaking boards plugged in. This is in the late 80s. And we used X10 to control the drapes and the lights. And sure enough, Timmy learned how to use it almost immediately. And that's when you found out the bird liked to go to bed early.
Nice.
So close the drapes. Close the drapes.
It's about 8 o'clock. The drapes are closed. The lights are off. It's like
this is the type of video that I watch on Instagram regularly, like the one where the guy takes a picture of a chimpanzee, and then the chimpanzee picks up the camera from the guy and starts flipping through the photos.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. Animals are smarter than you think.
Well, eventually,
definitely are.
We taught Timmy because we gave him a radio so he could turn the radio on for himself. Mm-hmm. He only listened to one program, and that program was
a religious radio station.
It was the Canadian equivalent of Rush Limbaugh. That was a very right-wing parrot.
It's a right-wing gray.
That's what it was. Yeah, he liked that one show. He liked that one voice, and he knew when it was on.
So he knew what time it was, and at 10 a.m.
he would turn it on. He said, "Listen for the hour."
Time for Limbaugh. Time for Limbaugh.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. And daylight savings time reeked.
Build the wall.
Yeah, right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The parrot really was. I mean, that's not instinctual. That's intelligence, right?
That's
right. That's the thing.
This stimulus response stuff, right? Like without a doubt, he quickly learned that he could use his sound to get what he wanted.
It felt good. So you make this sound, and something good happens.
And something good happens, right? He could ask for water, and we'd give him water. He liked being sprayed down.
Yep.
So
who doesn't?
And it's
Timmy the right-wing parrot. I think there's a show there.
Yeah.
I think it's actually on.
But that moment where you're fighting with the bird to be able to watch TV for another hour, like what has happened to my life, right? Like why am I fighting with this bird? Trying to turn the lights back on.
Well, this is we just talked about that with AI. I've had that experience with children where you say something like, "Mark, don't sit on your sister's head," is a word like a
sentence I never need to say.
Never anticipated coming out of my mouth. Like it doesn't make any sense. But
all right, let's talk about ARC and then we'll take a break.
Yeah, just real quick. So, ARC.
Well, this is a big story, man. You go on the ARC subreddit. And people are PO'd.
ARC is fascinating. I don't know that there is a more divisive application in the world than ARC, right?
It's a browser.
But it's a really nice browser, man.
It was a nice browser.
At a very high level, if you just sort of say, and everyone would agree that, look, the browser is the most important application on your desktop computer or your phone.
It's the most windows on your desktop.
Yep. Okay. Why are they all exactly the same? I mean, even when we talk about things like Brave, because they have all these great built-in security, privacy
fundamentally still the
or
same product.
Vivaldi, which lets you, customize it to infinity or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, it's web pages, tabs. It's the basic user experience.
Only so many
unchanged for 20 years. Yeah. So
it still looks like Netscape deep down.
Yeah, I do like the idea that someone, it's not going to come from the established dominant players, right, is rethink, like, this is important. Maybe we need to get this right. And so this thing they've come up with, ARC, is on the one, it's so different, it's off-putting. There are some people, many people, I would say probably most people, look at this thing and be like, nope, no, I can't. It's too different. Yeah. And even me, I as a sort of power user, whatever, there are things about it where I'm like, oof, I don't, But there are also some people, and we don't know what the percentage is, but let's say it's 10 to 20%, who see this thing and go, oh yeah,
this is the only way.
This is it. I am never leaving this thing. So the thing
now
that
it's
run
leaving you.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, we'll see. It's not going away or anything, at least not yet. But, this company, it's like 8 guys, whatever it has some vision for whatever the future computing could be. They see it through a web browser or web browser-like product. They see that as the platform. Yep. Okay, that's fine. I get it. They're like, look, we made this thing. We threw some features in there. It's too convoluted. I can't go. Someone who works there, the CEO, I can't go to my mother, or my sister, or my cousins, and they're like, no, it's too complicated for me. She's like, okay, so what am I going to do? And so they've been polling users. Like, here are the 3 big bucket features. If we had to get rid of just one of them, which one would you get rid of? And overwhelmingly, it was like, don't get rid of any of them. What are you talking about? Like, people love all of those features. The people who love Arc, which is, so they finally, I mean, I guess I give them credit for this. Like, they're like, we're going to have to start over. We have to make something different. And obviously AI something, I don't know, whatever it is, but it has to be simple, and it has to just work. And by the way, within, Google, I swear to God, within days, this story comes out that Google is doing something that sounds really similar in Chrome with something called Project Jarvis, right? This notion that the browser becomes, he didn't say it this way, agentic, right? And works on your behalf.
Yeah.
And goes out and does things. So what could a browser do? Look for the lowest price in a product you've been shopping for, or alert you when something happens, whatever it is. There are topics you care about. Like, let me know when, Microsoft's earnings drop. I need to know when that happens, that kind of thing. So there's no doubt that browsers will evolve and will evolve along those lines to some degree. It's just fascinating to me that they built this thing that's very, I would call it opinionated. It's very specific. And they're like, it didn't resonate with enough people. We have whatever number of millions of users, whatever it is. But anyway, so for now, they're keeping the original around. We'll see if that becomes tenable over the long term. I don't know.
This may be what Richard was talking about. They took venture capital money.
Yep.
And for a VC to be happy, they've got to get 100 million users. Yeah. And Arc is... I mean, you got me using Arc.
They quadrupled over the past year, but you can do the math. We're not going to reach 1 billion users.
Quadruple's not 10 times.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I use it because I love it, and you got me using it, and then you abandoned me. But anyway, I'm not bitter.
As I do.
But I love it, and I'll show people one of the things that I really like about it. Here I am on your show notes, and if I click this story, instead of opening a new page.
It opens above. I know, I love this
It opens above it, and then when I close it, I'm back where I was. There's little things like that.
Yeah,
it's got the sidebar. It's got spaces.
But that's a perfect example of something that's scary to some people. Like,
I understand.
Like, what is this?
But once you get used to it, I will be sorely missed if they decide.
They built in things like that work between Google Calendar and Gmail like that. Right, where you can, you don't have to go into the app.
Yeah,
it opens the
just
thing.
Pops up,
whatever it might be, like the meeting or whatever.
And it supports all the extensions. I wonder if Google abandoning Manifest V2 and moving to V3 and thereby breaking.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have a tougher time fighting that than say Brave or Opera for sure. I mean,
right,
it's a tiny.
Arc's Brave's solution was to say, okay, well, we're going to build the equivalent of uBlock Origin into the browser.
Have you used it? It's not very good. I mean,
it's not as good.
If you run that against the privacy sites, it's whatever's in there now, you still need an extension. Like, you can't use the stuff that's built in.
So Arc would have to, in effect, put uBlock Origin in Arc. Otherwise, they're a Chromium browser, so they're going to have to do ultimately what Google says.
Well, I mean, there are other ad blocking things that seem to work pretty well. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, uBlock Origin has released a light version.
If you're technical enough to use Arc, I think you can handle the extension.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I'll be honest, I don't care because I do use uBlock Origin, but I also have Next DNS, which does much the same
Privacy Badger still works. I mean, we'll see if that.
Well, and you don't even have to do it as an extension. You can have it as a DNS replacement.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you could use
the
Next DNS
like a pie hole, and then
that's true. Yeah.
Then it's everything.
Yep.
People are very salty about the browser company.
Oh yeah. No, and in both directions. I got to say, the way they market themselves, the way they talk, I find it's a little too hipster something to me. Like, it's a little. But then again, I look at the product. I'm like, damn, they're doing something right. They've also been very open about, look, at some point we do need to make money, and obviously they're looking at subscription,
VC
something,
problem.
something. And
Yeah.
I mean, they've been honest about it. I do appreciate the transparency there.
But maybe they'll come up with something really cool because they're going after
I'm
that
going to watch
100
it. I
million
mean,
users.
I'm fascinated by what they're doing so far. So,
yeah, and I think mostly the upset is that people put a little effort into converting to Arc, now have a whole investment into Arc, and are a little disappointed that maybe they've invested in something that's not.
Well, you've gone and engaged only the most interested audience.
Exactly.
That want something.
And as we
different.
know,
Yeah.
well, but that
I'm surprised they're going to be vocal. When
They're
you
welcome to
vocal.
our problem.
I
I
talk
always
to
tell
these
Lisa,
your
I
rice
say-
bowl and you take it away.
when we get hate mail, which we do from time to time, that's just a passionate user who loves what we do and is passionate
You have a
about
good
it.
not-
attitude, Leo. I
yeah,
like that. I have a hard time with that.
Don't have
but
a
yeah,
problem
you're
with
right.
love
I
or
mean,
hate.
you're right.
It's
You're right.
meh, right? That's what you're trying to
That's what you
avoid
don't
is
want.
meh.
Somebody who cares so little they don't.
Yeah.
They say, whatever.
They drift off.
Whatever. Yeah. I don't.
Most people are like that, obviously.
That's true.
All right, let's take a little break. Don't say meh, because corporate earnings are coming up, and I know you can't wait.
The least
And
meh of them all.
the most meh of them all. And I suppose, in deference to this sponsor, I should doff my. Do you like this though? This beautiful Russian cape. It's good. We'll see how the election
best
goes
hats.
next
Best
week,
hats.
and I might be wearing this more. We'll see.
Who knows?
I don't know. Our show today brought to you by, we love these guys. I talked to them last week or 2 weeks ago, and I had never heard of US Cloud. They said, Leo, we're the #1 Microsoft Unified Support replacement. And they explained why, and I went, oh, this makes a lot of sense. US Cloud is the global leader in third-party. This is third-party Microsoft Enterprise support, but it is beloved by its clients. 50 of the Fortune 500 use US Cloud. Why? Well, for two reasons. Switching to US Cloud can save your business 30 to 50% on a true comparable replacement for Microsoft Unified Support. But the other reason is it's better. US Cloud supports the entire Microsoft stack 24/7, 365. They respond faster. And by the way, financial SLAs for response time, something Microsoft will not do. They respond faster. They resolve tickets quicker for clients all over the world. You're always talking to real humans, not just humans, but the best and most accomplished expert level engineers. They go the extra mile to recruit really good people, average of 14.9 years, and that's for break, fix, or DSE. Their teams are 100% domestic, so your data never leaves the U.S. I mentioned the financially backed SLAs on response time. The initial ticket response averages under 4 minutes. And you know what? When things are breaking, stuff's going, it's so nice to get that call back within 4 minutes from an engineer who's really good, or multiple engineers who really can solve the problem. In 2023, last year, 94% of U.S. Cloud's clients reported saving 1/3 or more when switching from Microsoft support to U.S. Cloud. From Fortune 500 companies and large health systems to major financial institutions and federal agencies, U.S. Cloud ensures that vital Microsoft systems are working for over 6 million users globally every single day. And big brands and little companies, governments, they use U.S. Cloud. Yeah, they save money, but I honestly think because it's so good, that the results are so good. Big brands like a Caterpillar and HP, Aflac, Dun & Bradstreet, Under Armour, KeyBank, even the IT folks at Gartner have chosen U.S. Cloud for their Microsoft support needs. A director of information technology gave us a great quote. He said, and within an hour, U.S. Cloud responded with, I want to say, 4 engineers. So not only did they bring the right guys to the call, but they brought the cavalry. I just felt like, wow, that was amazing. That was unlike anything I had experienced in Microsoft in my 8 years of being with Premier. We made the right choice. And when it comes to compliance, no one gets it better than U.S. Cloud, ISO, GDPR, ESG compliance, not just regulatory requirements, but true strategic imperatives that drive operational efficiency, legal compliance, risk management, and corporate reputation. These standards foster trust and loyalty among customers and stakeholders. They attract investment. They ensure long-term sustainability and success in a competitive global market. It's like just getting a stamp of approval. Visit uscloud.com, book a call today, find out how much your team can save. I said, don't focus on savings. He said, well, that's important to a lot of people. I said, focus on quality. That's uscloud.com. Book a call today. Get faster, better Microsoft support. Yeah, okay, I'll admit it. For less. uscloud.com. We thank them so much for supporting Windows Weekly, and you support us when you go there. And if they ask you, say, oh, yeah, I saw it on Windows Weekly. That will help, too. All right. Time to talk earnings.
Woo.
How did Microsoft do?
Much money.
Microsoft is announcing their earnings later today.
Wait till the show is over
I'm
before
thinking it's going to be
course.
after the show. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be after the show.
But we do have
always
some
have.
other companies. Yeah, actually, Apple's doing it tomorrow. So
Yeah, Apple's is tomorrow, and then Amazon will be in the mix somewhere in the next, 3 days, something. Before that, though, there's been a years-long fight in Europe between the major cloud vendors and mostly Microsoft and Google, and it's been kind of fascinating. I don't cover this space explicitly, but I do get Google Cloud reach-outs regularly. And this, I don't know, it's a couple of days ago, yesterday, 2 days ago, Microsoft responded publicly in a very aggressive way.
Yeah.
And I'm reminded of I had a friend at Microsoft, Dave Calton, many years ago. He was talking at the time about Dell and Microsoft and about how terrible they were to each other. And his assessment was these two companies deserve each other. And I think this could apply here, right? And so what you've got is these three big American big tech companies, right?
Right.
Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Google being the smallest of the three, right? Trying to win customers, trying to whatever. We've talked. I think we've glossed over this a little bit in the past. We talked maybe about this notion of egress fees, right? Where
make it hard for people
antitrust murmurs like what is this? And I maybe I'm getting the order wrong, but I want to say late last year, maybe December last year, Amazon got rid of egress fees in Europe and probably worldwide. Google followed in January, and then Google immediately complained that Microsoft had egress fees, which I thought was hilarious.
Yes.
It was like 2 seconds later, the argument against
That's
Microsoft.
only all this year, Like,
okay, all right.
I know it's
So it
hard.
happened this year.
It's the end of October, but all that egress debate was this year.
Okay, so there's also been, all these companies have all these antitrust investigations, so it's kind of hard to keep track of this stuff. But there have been these industry groups that are made up of mostly European cloud companies, which are all very small. You've never heard of any of them.
Yeah.
And rallying against Microsoft's egress fees in this case, or whatever it is, Microsoft settled with them. Microsoft is now accusing Google of organizing that trade group and, in fact, controlling it. And it's the accusations are insane. Like I strongly
presumably
recommend.
they have the evidence to back it up.
They link to the evidence. They do have the evidence. It's
All right.
crazy.
So
now,
there's-
well, Google has reached out to me since I wrote about this, and what they've
Right.
said, and I've kind of added a quote from them, I think is the way I handled it. But they point to two specific instances where Microsoft points to something to say this is how Google is doing something secretly. To say, if you actually go there and look at it, you can see that we are explicitly part of this thing they say we are secretly part of, or something.
So it's not secret.
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft's complaint against them is basically that Google is waging a proxy war on Microsoft, right? Google wants, to gain ground on Microsoft in the space, obviously. That makes sense competitively. But the way they're doing it is to complain to antitrust regulators, to rile up local European cloud vendors who maybe don't care, to pay them if they don't show enough enthusiasm.
That's, I think, the line. That's the question I was going to ask. Like, it's all fine to, loop folks in and rile them up, but the moment you're paying for them, you're astroturfing.
One of the right. One is exactly what that's exactly Microsoft's charge.
Yeah.
So according to Microsoft, this trade group in Europe of cloud vendors settled with Microsoft. The case was going to end. They went to the European Commission, said, "Forget it. We're not doing this anymore. You don't have to worry about this lawsuit." Google offered to pay them lots of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. They declined it.
Wow.
And then Microsoft publicized it. So this is
ugly.
Some little fun to look at. There's nothing better than Godzilla and King Kong squaring off against each other.
One of them's Mothra. I'm pretty sure one of them.
Yeah. The problem here is I have this naive desire for these companies to maybe look. They compete in certain areas. I get this, but I feel like this kind of thing ruins any chance of these companies ever doing anything together. And it's
I don't know the answer to that. They always, they're still all on the same Chromium board, right?
I know, but that's such a small bottom line. I know,
but they're all small bits.
Those guys do get along. I hear about that. I mean, that part of Microsoft and that part of Google so far has been going great. Apparently,
yeah, but remember, it's Google. As long as it's not search, it's just not that important.
Yeah. Anyway, one of the beautiful lines in this Microsoft document, let me see if I can find this, is, they said, by our count, Google has at least 24 antitrust investigations against it. At a time when Google should be focused on addressing legitimate questions about its business, it's doing this instead, right?
That is a big glass house.
That is brutal. That's brutal. That is a big glass house. At that level of a company that big, that's bare fist fighting. Like, that's crazy. You don't talk like that.
And they're not even suing each other.
No, it's not.
That's the irony of it. It's not like they're in a court case together.
Incredible. Yeah. Even Apple didn't sue Google for this mobile stuff. They went after Samsung.
Yeah.
You just don't. It's so direct. It's amazing.
You don't tug on Superman's cape, man.
It's crazy. Yeah, I know, it's nuts. Anyway, it's notable for that reason. You should read this whole thing. It's there's a lot of very direct accusations in there. So that's humorous.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
meantime, in giant pile of money land.
Yeah, exactly. So
I want to live there. I want to go there.
Yeah. So Google, speaking of Google, or Alphabet, right, the parent company, just announced their earnings. I will say, Google, like Apple now, and like Microsoft, 25 years ago, is trying to be more diverse, right? Knowing that if you have one giant product and a bunch of small products and something bad happens to the giant product, you're screwed.
Yep.
Historically, their revenues from advertising were 70 to 80%, right?
Yep.
It's been going down a little bit. So this past quarter was 66%, if my math is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Big quarter for Google Cloud. It's like Microsoft, like Apple, actually. You don't really know where the money's coming from exactly, except in some cases. I mean, we know the advertising money, right? We know what portion of that is YouTube, et cetera. But the way they break up the company, it's kind of hard to say. When they say something like, for example, subscriptions, platforms, and devices, right? So we've just lumped in Android, Pixel, Nest, Google One. It's a bunch of things. Chrome OS, and all the associated stuff. So what part of what comes from? We don't know. I mean, very vague things. There was a report from a third party I don't necessarily trust that said Google probably sold more Pixels in that last quarter than it ever had, and all they said about that was very vaguely, we saw strong demand for the Pixel 9 series.
Nice.
It's just nothing. So it's kind of hard to say.
Got my 9 right here.
Yeah. Yep. I just went back to my 9 Pro, actually.
Yeah. The rounded corner thing's starting to bug me.
Oh,
I
interesting.
had a few apps with close buttons in the corner and only half of it's visible.
So this is a bigger problem on PC, by the way, because when you maximize apps, it shoots up into the the rounded corner of the screen. Well, I guess you're describing the same problem, but it's more common, I would say, on desktop than it is on mobile. But
it's an interesting.
Gee, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Yep, it's kind of weird. And if you're Microsoft, you make something like Surface. Laptop, the curve of the screen and the curve of the outside of the lid are different angles or whatever, or different arcs.
Weird. Yeah.
Yep, because it's Microsoft. They can't get the little things right. And
Apple would just die at that.
Oh my God, Apple! You look at a MacBook Air; it's perfect. It's 100% perfect. Yep. That's the model, guys. Sorry. AMD also announced their earnings a little bit less than Google, like less than 1/10 as much. And by the way, interesting. So AMD $6.8 billion in revenues, right? This is a company that earns a profit of under $1 billion, right? It's small in this space. I mean,
it really is small.
It is small. And the weird thing for AMD is that it's a quarter, but still, it's it's small. I mean,
I don't know. I take
it's a tiny player in it's a tiny player in data center, but growing rapidly in this market, trying to compete with NVIDIA, which is going gangbusters. It's a tiny player in PCs, and it's trying to make some inroads there. And now Qualcomm has come along, and probably more in the future, Windows and ARM type things. And so, they're there. They do well. I think this is later in the show. Yeah, I'm going to talk about this later. But sometime this week, I'll publish my review of the first Zen 5 based laptop that I've used. It is awesome. Like, wow. Without qualifying anything, it's awesome. Now, the battery life is not as good as we see on ARM, of course, but it's very good for an x86, whatever. And the graphics performance for things like games is off the charts. It's just it looks like a standard business laptop. It is a wolf in sheep's clothing, So they're doing something right, but they're small. I mean, I worry about them a little bit. I think they get lost in the mix,
Well, they needed to exist because the military wanted a second source for Intel chips.
Yeah. They said, they weren't super clear about this, but my understanding of this, they talked about supply chain constraints. Mm-hmm. It's not 2021 again. So what are you talking about? And I think what they meant was because NVIDIA is making chips at such volume, they get preference over at TSMC, and they just can't get in the queue,
Interesting.
And they would have sold more if they could have made them. So that's kind of an interesting problem as well.
And it speaks to the issue with separated foundries. One thing about vertical integration is you have control of your own production.
Yeah, AMD used to have their own fabs too, by the way. I mean, this was the thing. Everyone did, right?
But they modernized the way Intel hasn't. And now Intel looks like the dinosaur that may be broken up.
Yep.
But, supply chain constraints.
I blame Tim Cook for this, by the way. When he was still CMO?
He was COO. When he was COO, and he would do things like buy up all of production and block other people.
He got Apple. Apple stopped making their own stuff. He offshored everything. Found the cheapest place. China was the big one for now, and then, now India, Vietnam, wherever else they're going. But that was him. Like that, it was.
Yep.
And look, it's saving money makes sense. I mean, it's kind of hard to.
It wasn't just saving money. It was also he got a lot of innovation out of it, but he also when he found the guys making the high density RAM, he bought all of it.
Oh, they did all this stuff. I mean, the original iPod.
So nobody could compete.
Toshiba made this tiny, I think it was 2 or 2.5 inch hard drive.
Yeah.
It's a hard drive, it's not even an SSD. They had no idea what to use it for.
Yeah.
No one wanted it. No one could use it for anything. And Apple happened to be working on the iPod, and someone said, "You buy every single one of those things for the next year," and they sopped it up. So people or other companies that wanted to compete couldn't find the drives. Right, there were no drives left.
No, it's brilliant, and it's another way of competing, and it's a questionable one. Like that's good FTC, WTO fodder.
Yeah,
but it is.
Well, I mean, you're not dominant, right? That's the thing. You're Apple was entering a market that for it did not exist at the time. I mean,
it was barely. The MP3 player existed. It just was.
Yeah, it did, but not at Apple. So what was the problem with an outside player?
I'm with you.
No one else. Creative could have said we need the drive. They didn't even bother.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But it's a little different with the TSMC. Buying all the 3 nanometer production from TSMC for a year.
It's tough. It's tough.
Well, and there the constraint primarily is people operating the machines, right? Like this is the issue they're having trying to set up those machines in the U.S.
You got to find people with tiny fingers.
My little 3 nanometer fingers are hard to come by.
Yeah.
We'll watch tomorrow. Our friend Jason Snell on the Mac Break Weekly show does color graphs.
Apple's tomorrow. Microsoft is late today. I think, like I said, after the show, it looks like.
It's honestly, these days, it's just become a drumbeat of success. It's very rare with these particular companies.
You have to really look for it to find the problem. Because, by the way, even like AMD, I mentioned supply constraint. I mentioned how small they are compared to these other companies. One thing I didn't tell you, by the way, their earnings, like net income was up almost 200% year over year, and their revenues, which is maybe the more meaningful number, still double digits, 17%. Like, they're doing great. Their revenues were, in fact, a corporate record. It's just that they play in a pool with these gigantic fish.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough. Like it's too bad AMD couldn't find a market where they could, just kind of take it.
It's hard being a badass minnow in a pool full of sharks.
Yeah, I know. they're in a tough spot, but they seem to be doing good work. So,
yeah, they what they aren't is
We'll
headlines about their corporate governance and their misdirection and things like that. Like they're actually doing good things.
Yep. Yeah, one of the
good
bits of
products.
business, and it might have been the only part of their business that fell year over year, was gaming. And if I understand this business correctly, gaming is made up of two parts. One is the money they get from Xbox, right? So, yikes, of course it is.
Okay.
And then the other, I believe, is their graphics cards and things like that. So,
Right.
But as we'll discuss later in the show, I mean, we're getting to the obviously there will always be need for dedicated graphics cards, especially maybe even in the data center or whatever. But in the PC space, it's fascinating to me that they probably call it something different, but their integrated graphics are unbelievably good right now, and it's just astonishing, like how good it is. I'll get to it. We'll talk about this.
Let us take a little pause, and because I like to have the Xbox segment live in a world of its own.
Yeah, it does in a way live in
It
a
has
world
a
of its
sting.
own.
It must
A
be good.
Shangri-La, if you will.
Oh yeah, Kevin, get the Halo sting ready.
You're totally not going to be sued for this sound.
Well, we play it backwards, so
All is dead.
I think that gets us off the content ID hook. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what TikTok thought was contraband.
I'm hoping it's your hat. I
It
would give
be great if it's
anything
the hats.
that-
I'm wearing the hats for
There's a
TikTok.
monetization thing happening here that we don't approve of, and it's
No, the
not
hats
happening,
are
which is what's beautiful
specifically
about
to
it.
keep the TikTok audience watching.
I love it.
They need something. God knows. We do stream now on 8 different platforms, including TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, X.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, of course, our Club Twit Discord, and TikTok. If you're not in the club, please do join the club. We'd love to have you. $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all the shows, access to the Discord, which is a great hang with some really fun, interesting people. And it goes on day and night. You don't have to be watching a show to be in the Club Twit Discord. That party is ongoing. And we also do spend. By the way, when I say party, I mean party. They really like the animated GIFs thing. That's a big part of what they do. Yes, I have many hats. $7, twit.tv/clubtwit. Oh, and there's one more thing that's pretty darn cool. We now have a referral program for Club Twit, which means if you want to get a free membership, all you have to do is tell a friend. And for every friend you get to join the club, you get a free month of Club Twit, and that could be forever if you have enough friends. So I would suggest you go to twit.tv/clubtwit, sign up, join the club. It supports us. It keeps us going. It does not go into my pocket. It helps us pay Paul and Rich and all of our team, Kevin, keeps the lights on and all of that, and really makes a big difference to our bottom line. We don't do it because we want to set up a paywall of any kind. We do it because we need to. We need to help the revenue out in these tough times. We have literally, I don't want to scare you guys, but we have sold no ads for 2025. Every advertiser is like, let's wait and see what happens. Let's wait and see what happens. But that's a problem because we still have to pay everybody. So what you do helps us a lot. Thank you to the members of Club Twit. Now I'm going to take off this silly panda hat because I have to get serious, because we have a serious sponsor today. This is a great sponsor. You've heard us talk about the idea of zero trust security. It might have been Google that was certainly the first place I heard of it, where they just traditional perimeter security, you block everybody, keep them out, but then you assume if they're inside the network, they must be good guys, right? Yeah, no, obviously not. So zero trust is a way of handling that. And of course, the best way to do zero trust, and look around and you'll see, people agree, is ThreatLocker. It's affordable. It's really effective. If you're worried about zero-day exploits, supply chain attacks, if those threats are keeping you up at night, worry no more, because you can really, This is the best way to harden your security. ThreatLocker. Worldwide companies like JetBlue trust ThreatLocker to secure their data, keep their business operations flying high. The key is it's a proactive, and this is really essential here, deny by default approach to cybersecurity. That means every action, process, user is blocked by default until you authorize it specifically, categorically. And there's, of course, a lot of granularity in there. ThreatLocker makes this very easy. Plus, they provide a full audit of every action. That's great for risk management, for compliance. And the support team is fantastic. 24/7, US-based. They will help you get on board and beyond. Stop the exploitation of trusted applications within your organization. Keep your business secure. Protect it from ransomware. Organizations across any industry can benefit from ThreatLocker's ring fencing. Ring fencing is very cool. It isolates critical and trusted applications, puts them inside, right, from unintended uses or weaponization. It limits attackers' lateral movement within the network. And it really works. Ring fencing from ThreatLocker was able to foil a number of attacks that were not stopped by traditional EDR. I'll give you an example. The cyber attack, the SolarWinds Orion cyber attack. A lot of people use SolarWinds Orion. People who use that, and ThreatLocker, ring fencing, foiled the cyber attack. It stopped it cold. Another good thing, because, we now work in heterogeneous networks, ThreatLocker works for Macs too. Windows and Mac. Get unprecedented visibility and control of your cybersecurity quickly, easily, cost-effectively. ThreatLocker's zero-trust endpoint protection platform offers a unified approach to protecting users, devices, and networks against the exploitation of zero-day vulnerabilities. Get a free 30-day trial. Learn more how ThreatLocker can help mitigate unknown threats, brand new threats. No one's seen them before. That's why you can't use a traditional EDR. The best way to do this is to say, hey, you can't get in until I say so. They can mitigate unknown threats, and because there's a complete, trail of everything you've done, completely ensure compliance. It's so cool. Visit threatlocker.com. Threatlocker.com. We thank them so much for supporting Windows Weekly. You support us when you go there, and if they ask, say, I saw it on Windows Weekly. Threatlocker.com. And now it's time for the the Xbox segment with Mr.
Nice.
Paul Sweat Hugs. The Sweatbox. I like that. Is that the backwards version? I love that.
Yep.
It gives it a little something extra.
Yeah, okay. I just played it backwards on my keyboard.
It sounds. I'm getting flashbacks to Catholic Church as a child.
Nice.
Repent your sins.
I love it.
Kind of
I love it. Anyway, what's up in the Xbox here?
Yeah. So as we careen into the end of the year, I've been trying to decide whether what's happened with Windows this year is worse or better or not as bad maybe as what's happened with Xbox. Right now it's kind of a toss-up. But every year at this time, at this month, Satya Nadella writes a letter to shareholders. And it's mostly about momentum and a little bit about hinting about maybe where things are going to go in the future. So when I saw that, I said, let me just see what he had to say about gaming and Xbox. And, not that much, as it turns out. But he did kind of encapsulate the Xbox strategy today in a single sentence, which is, we are bringing great games to more people on more devices. Now, if that were true, I guess I'd be really excited about it. But it's fair to say that Activision Blizzard was the culmination of a game studio buying spree, also the apex of that, I would say. And now they have that in place. They've got the subscription services, which makes Xbox make sense within, the Microsoft of today. I'm sure there's AI stuff coming. Don't worry, we're not going to forget about Xbox. Richard has talked about this notion of using AI to create gaming environments and storylines and everything, right? It's going to be kind of an interesting thing. He talks about having 20 franchises now between Activision Blizzard and stuff that Microsoft already owned that have generated over $1 billion in lifetime revenue, right? Halo Gears of War, Diablo, Warcraft, Elder Scroll. I think Call of Duty makes $1 billion every 15 seconds, so that's probably why it didn't make the list. But also Candy Crush on mobile, right? So this kind of made me think, people who love Xbox fans did not anticipate this year. It's fair to say. But what's the goal? Like, what's the point? Like, what are we waiting on here? Like, what's the thing that's going to happen? Like, where are they going with this, right? When you say, as the console maker, that you're going to bring more games to more people on more devices, you're explicitly or implicitly saying that console is not the primary platform, the primary platform anymore. Although they have bragged about this next gen thing coming down the pike that's going to blow all our minds and everything. And I have my suspicions that this thing might be ARM-based if they can get it there, right? That's part of it. Brad has speculated that they might farm out Xbox hardware to third parties like they do with PCs, right? That you might have, some number of PC or hardware makers that will manufacture Xbox consoles in the future. Maybe some of them will be mobile in nature, like Steam Deck. Cloud gaming, right? Which is limited right now to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is $20 a month. It's very expensive. Is not necessarily the greatest experience, although I'm actually going to talk about that in a minute as well. I'm surprised there isn't a standalone Game Pass SKU, right? So I guess, we can only speculate. I guess that's sort of, I should add too, I'm sorry, I forgot the other piece of the puzzle here is mobile. They've talked explicitly about bringing a mobile game store of some kind, both to Apple's and Google's mobile platforms. Now, the Google one has been pushed back because of the successful attempt to stall that by appealing, which makes sense. And, of course, the Apple stuff will probably happen, and we'll see what that looks like in the EU only, although I think eventually those things all kind of follow along together. Does Xbox make more native mobile games? Is it going to be all cloud gaming where they bring console class games to it like a streaming type thing? I don't know. But at the beginning of this year, I was really excited about Xbox. And at the end of the year, I'm just trying to hold it together,
Yeah.
And
not much has happened. Like, I don't know that I compare Windows and Xbox fairly there. Windows has actually done a real heavy lift. Get 24H2 out the door.
Yep.
You've almost undermined its value by calling it a service pack. It was a major update to the OS.
I guess I mean it from sort of a chaos perspective. In other words, like you head into this year, and for Windows, this year is really kind of an October to October thing. Mm-hmm. You think you've got a handle on what we're doing, and then this year happens. You're like, I guess not.
No, and that's the whole thing. Is this time last year, it's like we've had 6 months of fighting over this acquisition. That Sony did their very best to make it sound like the world was going to end if it went through. And now it's been a year, and really nothing.
Yep.
Not a thing.
I won't remember the judge or the exact case. I think maybe
what you'll remember is that after it happened, nothing happened after.
And that's what one of the, I think it was the judge in the Gamers lawsuit said, he's basically what you just said. A year from now, what's going to happen is you're going to play the game you want to play on the platform you want to play, and nothing will have changed.
Yeah.
So,
well, and of course, I don't even know that that's true because we haven't even seen much in the way of major cross-plat moves. What we've really seen is essentially nothing. I mean, the good news is Blizzard has shipped Diablo. They have shipped updates to World of Warcraft. Like, it sounds like parts of the company are still functioning. But where's a new marquee title? Where's a shuffling of that? Where's releases on other platforms? Like, nothing's happened.
So this is part right. So the final sentence of Satya Nadella's blurb about Xbox and gaming was mentioning that they did bring 4 of their, he called them fan favorite titles, which means not our biggest titles, but Sea of Thieves, etc., to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time. Yeah. And we will continue to extend our content to new platforms.
So maybe it was a dabbling year, like they're just sort of trying things.
Well, we know the Indiana Jones game that's coming out, I think right at the end of the year, is going to come to PlayStation. There'll be more of this stuff. Okay, fine. I know that upsets some people. Having played Call of Duty for many years and watching it go from, in my case, from being Xbox only online experience to Xbox plus PlayStation online experience to today, Xbox plus PlayStation plus PC plus game streaming, by the way, or cloud gaming as Microsoft calls it. So things change. I mean, I do like the big tent aspect of the Xbox vision. I think it is what makes sense for the brand and for the product line or whatever. I think getting out of hardware would make a ton of sense, even though I know that upsets people.
But that's gonna, and that's nothing to do with Blizzard per se. I would go back to the Blizzard thing and say it is super normal in an M&A acquisition to be hands off for the first year.
Yeah, and actually, if you look at aside from the fact that the latest Call of Duty game has come to Game Pass.
Yeah,
first time a new major release has come to game streaming. These are things Activision wouldn't have done on its own. Explicitly said we will never do. This has unrolled. This game just came out Friday, so it's not even been a week. But this has unrolled just like it feels like previous Call of Duty releases. Right? If you didn't know Microsoft had a roll, if you didn't know they spent $68 billion on this thing, you wouldn't really know anything had changed. And you're right. I think that's the point. They don't want to promote that part of it because why would they? Like, what does that have to do with anyone playing on PlayStation? I don't care about that.
No, and I think it also takes a while to get your hands on the company to actually see how it functions, to get through those mechanisms. Yeah, and then then changes could be happening. I would wonder if first quarter next year is going to be the beginning of shakeup.
I think we're going to see, because we've just seen murmurs of this, they're going to redo the original Halo. Of course they are, right? It's almost certainly going to be on PlayStation, right? It has to be. I mean, and that's going to really upset people, but it has to be, right? It has to be. I think this is not based on anything, but I think they need to bring more of their IP to mobile directly. Like, not a Halo-like game on mobile, but Halo on mobile, right? Yeah. Actual Halo. And I don't know that there's been no indication that some studio that Activision owned had some secret title that was going to be amazing, or that Microsoft bought them for that reason. But I think part of it was obviously just the inertia and momentum of their successful franchises, the ability to get it in inroad in mobile, and then to use those assets, for lack of a better term, to help them bring their existing IP to mobile or to other platforms as well, right? They're getting that kind of expertise.
And we are just noticing Chocolate Milk there saying console gaming's getting meh. It's like we're due for new hardware, except that there's no justification for new hardware. There are so few games that press against the limits of the current generation consoles because it simply costs too much. So you have to make a multi-billion-dollar title to spend the money it takes to press against the limits of those machines.
One of the things that came out in all that leaked stuff about Xbox about a year ago, 15 months ago, whatever it was this notion that they wanted the next console to be ARM-based. Yeah. And if they can pull that off, there is an interesting thing there, because it opens up a handful of things. One is obviously a more efficient console. Consoles right now are like nuclear reactors sucking down energy, right? They're horrible. So that would be interesting. I think that Microsoft, with their whole developer base, can pull off this thing where it benefits Windows as well, specifically Windows and ARM, where developers can create a game for the Xbox platform, if you will, and thus make it easier for those games.
It's also Microsoft. If Uncle Satya rolls it out, he can just simply say, "Everyone, thou shalt all make ARM versions for Windows of all of these games." Get compiling.
But it has to be ready. That's the thing. So we'll see. I think there's a mobile play here too, which Microsoft has never bitten on, that either literally is a portable Xbox or a Steam Deck type thing, which is actually a PC, obviously.
But you're hinting at the bigger issue here, which is we're at a sea change in game development. We're at the early stages with this next generation of generative AI. But it's just and a new piece of hardware is a 2-year development cycle and a 5-year production commit. You can't make that commitment right now. You need to wait.
That commitment already had to have been made. That is kind of the point.
Yeah, and you've just been disrupted. Like anything you came up with 2 years ago, if they've done that, and maybe they have, you got to check it out.
Well, we don't know. We don't know.
Because it doesn't have an NPU in it.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, you're talking about a truly contemporary gaming machine. Yes, ARM. Yes, next generation GPU, but also an NPU.
Yes, of course. Yeah, but at the time of the leak, if I remember correctly, that decision to go ARM or not would have already occurred. It's just that we got a leak that was a slice in time from previous to that. So we don't know. I mean, there's been no hint outside of this of what direction that might go or when it could happen, whatever. Other than, Sarah Bond kind of vaguely saying the next one's going to blow your socks off, however she put it.
But there's also a strong case for get out of hardware, put out a reference design.
Yes.
Everybody make these. We'll make games for everything.
They desperately want that, but they also understand that might be the bridge too far for their user base today, that they have to get there in baby steps. Like in the same way that this Call of Duty release, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, feels like it always did. And it's kind of a proof point. Like, see, we're not going to screw this up. Like it's going to be the thing you always wanted or the thing you wanted again a year later, I guess, because it's literally the same thing every year. We didn't screw it up, right? We did a good job with Mojang and Minecraft. We did a good job with GitHub. We're going to do a good job with this, and kind of make that proof point, and then we can get to the next step, which is going to be this thing, which I just, in my own experience, has been very difficult, convincing this fan base, whose lives are all based around the console, that this life.
It doesn't mean the consoles won't still exist. It's just they'll be sold by Acer and half a dozen other companies, right?
Yeah.
But they'll all run all you want. You'll buy whatever console you want. It has the game you want on it. But what if every console has the game you want on it?
Here's the thing. So if you think about the PC space, how it's been for decades, right? What you get is this range of capabilities and different companies competing with each other and trying to outdo each other in whatever ways, right? And so there are ways you, as a volume PC maker, can save money on components. There's a way, if you go with AMD, like your laptop gets really good graphics capabilities or whatever it might be. The thing that's kind of unique about ARM that I've noticed this past summer is these laptops are all the same. They're all the same. And they're the same in a good way, right?
Yep.
They all get really good battery life. The performance is incredible. The efficiency is off the charts. The reliability is better. The whole thing is really good. And that speaks to me of what needs to happen and I'm just making this up. Again, it's not based on anything, but this notion that Microsoft could farm out the hardware as they do in the PC space, you almost need that platform to make it work, because otherwise you're just selling them today's devices are based on AMD, by the way, the same thing with PlayStation, actually. You're basically giving them what is in effect, I guess, a reference board or something, and saying, well, just
build
your fun around it and do whatever you want. But
and the upside to the way consoles are done is that hardware is several years old, which means that a current generation or next generation ARM set should be able to emulate it at full bore. So you get your game compatibility. You can move forward with contemporary games that way. But the bigger issue to me will be, how do you reduce the team size and still do all of the graphic features, all of the asset creation, so forth? And that's where the generative AI play comes in. Yep. That we now can generate a lot more of that content, so that the machines are always pressed to their limits, and you are getting maximum resolution, maximum assets, because they're generated on demand.
Yep. And we'll say, all I have is this paragraph of text from Satya Nadella, allegedly, that doesn't say a lot, but it really got me thinking. We're coming off a pretty tough year.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of this is holding pattern stuff that might
totally
or may not
agree.
be related to ARM/AI waiting.
My friends that are in the gaming industry are all fairly terrified. They've had a bunch of layoffs. Yeah. They've had, and more importantly, it's silence. There's not a lot of new games being initiated. And I think it's because we're in the midst of a retooling of how games are made because of generative AI.
Yep. And
me, I'm an AI cynic. I push hard on this stuff, but when you don't need precision for games.
Well, you don't have to worry about hallucinations. They're making up stories.
Yeah, it's already a made-up story. You're good.
Yeah, it's already crazy. This will be perfect for Nintendo. It's like a purple mushroom flying through space.
But the costs associated with making this content are massive. And you have to make these $100 million plus bets a year before you make $1.
Xbox went from a Celeron x86 to PowerPC back to, I guess, x64 at this time, over 2 gens now. Each platform in sequence powerful enough to emulate the
previous
earlier version. We've just seen, arguably, maybe inarguably, the biggest, one of the biggest accomplishments with this latest Snapdragon X Elite chipset from Qualcomm is its emulation capabilities.
It's amazing. So there's a window here.
Yep. So it seems like it's lining up to me.
That's only taking care of the old things. The question is, can you make a new game that people are going to care about enough to drop $500?
As long as it's called Halo,
console?
Richard, yes.
Perhaps, but only, I don't
know. Yeah, so again, there's not a lot of, I want to be clear about, I hope I was clear as I spoke, or as we spoke to, where most of this is speculation, just wondering, because it doesn't make sense in a way that Microsoft would come out with these console refreshes they are now selling that are, they're fine for what they are, but at a time when Sony is putting out a PS5 Pro, which admittedly is going to sell 17 or 18 units. It's not like it's going to go gangbusters.
No, and I already have friends who bought it. But again, it's a piece of art, right? It's also a holding pattern machine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's current gen. I mean, yep. But, they did, Xbox One was this, an Xbox 360 too, but I would say even more so Xbox One is an example of an Xbox generation where they kept constantly revved on the hardware, and not just for cost reduction, although that's always part of it, going from the original tank to the Xbox One S to the X, with this kind of steady ladder of technical improvements. And, I guess the new one's a little less inefficient.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not a lot going on there.
But none of these decisions were Uncle Satch's. And now that it's Uncle Satch's call, he could easily say, this is a low-margin business and we are not going to be in it. Go make an ecosystem that will take that risk. And we now own enough game brands to guarantee a sufficient number of games for the entire ecosystem.
Yes, right. Yeah,
that's the power they have.
On that note, it is sort of mission accomplished in the sense that they do have a wide body of successful games and game franchises to work on.
They get to pick what consoles succeed. If their game, if that suite of games comes to that console succeeds. If they don't, it doesn't. Not that they would ever not go, but the point being, they now hold gravity over the whole market that way.
Right. I just wanted to quickly go through this because I had not played Call of Duty in almost 2 years.
And how do you feel?
Latest game is now available on day one, right on PC Game Pass, Game Pass Ultimate, including cloud gaming, which is the streaming service. Laurent, who writes the news at Thurrott.com, was telling me that he had played briefly last Friday and said, honestly, he was surprised by how good the performance was over the cloud gaming, the streaming part of it. Granted, he has a 1 gigabit, whatever, connect, or 1 terabit.
Symmetrical fiber, yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite symmetrical. It's like 1/700, but it's very good. I have a pretty fast connection here, but it's still slower on the uplink part than it is on download.
Right.
But I decided to give it a try. So I will say I was surprised to discover the single-player campaign is playable, legitimately playable. And that gave me the inspiration to try playing it on cloud streaming, which is unplayable is a strong word, but because I played 3 or 4 games, and I finally I finally got like a positive KD, and I kind of quit. But I got destroyed the first 2 games.
It's just like you had an urge to be teabagged. Is that why you went in there?
Like, it was pretty bad. I hadn't been punched in the face in a while.
You haven't been smacked by 14-year-olds lately.
So that wasn't that fun. But that inspired me to install the game on that AMD based laptop I was talking about. So I have to say, this is the latest. This is the Zen 5, right? This is a higher end chip. It's off the top of my head, I'm going to get the name wrong, but it's a Ryzen AI, whatever the highest 7 or 9 series HX, with the really nice integrated graphics. Yeah, this thing runs Call of Duty multiplayer, the latest game, at 120 frames per second at native resolution. It's awesome.
So it's only latency that is the issue. And now
no. This is now I've installed it and I'm playing it on the. Now there's no latency issue. I won the first game I played. I have a positive KD again, like nothing happened. So I played 4 or 5 games, and that experience was off the charts.
The hardware
positive.
makes the player. Is that what you're saying? I think you're saying that.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the hardware allows the good players' best characteristics to come out. Most obviously. That even a good player would be hampered by bad lag and latency.
He's almost halfway to the master race now.
There you go. On his way.
We're making some progress.
Well, but here's the thing. I have it here. I'm just going to show you this laptop because it is unexceptional looking.
Thumbnail underway.
It is just it's just a silver nothing.
Just an HP.
You would see this on a plane and you wouldn't look twice.
You wouldn't
But
know.
I'm telling you, this thing is
This
unbelievable.
makes me a Call of Duty god.
Yeah. Well, no, it doesn't make me. It allows me, a Call of Duty god, to fully express myself in the game.
You do need a silver lame shirt, I think.
Yeah.
The Call of Duty god thing.
I'm just saying, yikes, like pretty good. So but maybe more to the point, I have been very critical of cloud gaming because I've gone in, many times. Back when Google Stadia was a thing, I could play, I think it was probably Doom 2016 at the time, successfully on that platform, but not on, that wasn't available, I'm sorry. So, it was, I'm sorry, but not on whatever the Doom game was at the time, right, on cloud gaming. It just, the lag was too much. It was bad. Yeah. And I know Microsoft is throwing more resources at it now and trying to, they want this to take off and work. And they did something right. I mean, the single-player experience is playable. I mean, I know that sounds silly. Of course, that should be the minimum bar, but
I think that's what you wanted.
But it worked. Online play, it's not so much. But I got in there. It was okay. So that's good stuff. And then the laptop review sometime within the next week. I'll have that out. It's
cool.
going to be overwhelmingly
You
positive.
You love
is
it.
Is it Meteor Lake? What is the?
No, this is the AMD Zen 5.
So and is it an AMD discrete graphics
it's
card?
A nice one, yeah. Well, it's they call it something else. It's integrated graphics, but it's let me look at it.
It's not a Radeon. It's something.
Yeah. It's AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX 375.
Yeah, that's the top of the line.
Radeon 890M graphics, yeah.
I would, and how much was that little, well, you're going to have.
By the way, I just looked at, so you can get it right now on sale for under $1,000.
I would have said $1,200 all day long.
Oh, dear God.
15, 12,
and
15.
And if you saw what I paid for that Mac Mini.
I know.
Yeah. It's a good hat upgrade, though, Leo.
I know.
32 gigs of RAM. You trying to sell something, Leo? What's going on?
This is a real Panama hat, and as all real Panama hats are, it's from Ecuador.
The dice. Nice. It's from the
Seriously,
Philippines.
that's where Panama hats come from. Okay. Confusingly, Ecuador.
Nice.
So I got this when I was down visiting not Machu Picchu, the Galapagos.
Galapagos.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What was that?
Galapagos.
Galapagos.
I don't know if I like this
amazing.
home experience thing they're trying to do here. It sure seems like just let me show you new ads.
I know. I saw this and I my heart dropped because I thought it was the Xbox console interface.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was for the PC and I was like, who cares? Whatever.
Oh, in the
That's
home
exactly what I was
experience.
saying,
It's
yeah.
about time.
Welcome to the home experience. We haven't shown you enough ads yet.
Yeah.
Where will the
Right.
ads
Hey,
go?
I know you want to play a game, but we'd like to buy something else first.
Yes.
Well, the good thing
What
about
am I
Xbox
seeing up
app,
here in the corner?
That's
Download
that's the
Microsoft
browser.
Edge mobile app.
Yeah.
Why? I'm on a laptop.
I just
What are you talking about?
We're here to help.
the nice thing about the Xbox app on Windows is that you don't need it. It's not like when you don't. It doesn't have to launch. Like it could be. It's going to be there in the background or whatever. But when you install games, they just go into the start menu. You can just launch the games. It doesn't. You don't have to. It doesn't get in your way too much.
Good.
Yeah. But anyway, this is what I use the what do you call it? The game bar to throw up the frames per second count. I could watch that and
Oh, that's neat.
locally installed on that laptop, man. It was like 120, 130 frames per second.
Nice.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. On multiplayer, like, that's pretty good.
And you're sniping 360s.
When you're watching the single player cinematic, sequences, the frame rate is like 700, some stupid, because it's not really playing, you're not playing a game. But
It's not doing any work.
It's
yeah.
just like stupid. Like it's unbelievable how well this thing works.
So your review is coming up.
Yeah, it should be pretty soon. I was waiting to. I had put I had played some other games on here, similar results, but because Call of Duty is, I belatedly. I should have thought of this last Friday, but when the other day I was like, wait a minute, I got to install this game, So I was surprised by how good it was. I had pretty good results this past summer with that little. Remember the $700 IdeaPad running the previous gen AMD stuff, again integrated graphics, but this is much better than I thought it was going to be. It's kind of interesting.
By the way, I didn't realize it. Happy birthday, Paul. Yesterday was your birthday. Thank you, Christian, for filling me in.
Yeah, I'm old enough that I don't really...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You don't know which birthday it is anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, people, if you were to ask me, like, how old are you? I'd be like...
Really?
What year is
like,
it?
I don't,
Just hold up how many fingers. That's the...
I don't know.
I don't have that many fingers, Leo. That's the problem. It looks like the Microsoft results might be out.
Well, while you're scanning those,
how is that?
why don't you feed it to some AI and get some summary points? You could give it Apple Intelligence. They probably do a pretty
Maybe
good
not.
job.
I don't know.
Don't they wait till the market close? Well, it would be market close was
It's supposed to be
13 minutes ago. Yeah.
A while from now, but I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
They usually wait till you finished your show like that. Clearly, they're watching.
Yeah.
Just saying.
This episode of Windows Weekly brought to you by Melissa. I'm going to leave the hat on for Melissa because they got some class. The fabulous trusted data quality expert. They've been there since 1985, longer than we have. With Melissa's launch of their new address validation app in the Shopify App Store, this is kind of complicated. So if you're a Shopify Plus merchant, you now can use a Melissa address validation app directly from the address expert. That means when customers are entering their addresses, when you're mailing stuff, the address will be correct, no typos. Key features of the Melissa address validation app include real-time address validation, as one would expect. Customers are immediately notified they're in their store, right, doing the shop pay. They're immediately notified if the address they enter contains errors or needs correction, which is great for you. It eliminates shipping delays, reduces return rates. You want to get the goods and services to your customers, and you want the right address. This helps them do that. It also has global reach. The app validates addresses in over 240 countries and territories, which I think is pretty much all of them, standardizing them according to local postal regulations. That's cool, too. It's got enhanced address correction. Even if Google Auto Suggestion is enabled, Melissa's app can ignore it and correct and standardize addresses, adding missing components like postal codes, ensuring compliance with local formatting rules. Ignore is not a good word. Enhances it, right? Make sure it's right. It's CAS and SERP certified. The address engine is certified by the United States Postal Service and Canada Post, which means your validation in North American addresses are right on. You can get smart alerts, which will provide a warning on the thank you page as your customer's checking out if there's a potential issue with the shipping address. Means even at that late stage, customers can update the information before the order is processed. Shopify Plus merchants can easily install the Melissa address validation app to improve customer satisfaction and avoid the costs associated with returns and redeliveries. And of course, in this respect and everything else you do with Melissa, you get secure encryption for all file transfers and an information security ecosystem built on the ISO 27001 framework. You get adherence to GDPR policies. You get SOC 2 compliance, of course. Goes without saying. Melissa's the best. You can get started right now. You can use it on-prem. You can use it in the cloud. They have a secure FTP server. You can upload and download contact lists, supplier lists, address lists too. And if you want to try the API, you can get started with 1,000 records cleaned for free right now. Just go to melissa.com/twit. You can do it all in the browser. MELISSA, melissa.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support and for doing such a great job over the last few decades. Melissa.com/twit. If Paul won't say, why should she? Why should Melissa?
So just I don't want to eat into. But I'm just looking at this. So, yeah, they did release this.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's weird. It's not on their main investor site, or it wasn't when I first looked.
Yeah. What's the deal?
Very similar to Google. So, net income, $24.7 billion on revenues of almost $66 billion.
Oh, wow.
Both up low double digits, 11, 16%.
Wait a minute. The net was $27 billion for a quarter?
Yeah, it's a high margin software.
27 on 66.
So,
and
the big
Google was 24 on 68, something like that.
Yeah, they're very close. It's hard looking at this quickly, but two things. A couple things to stand out. PC revenue to Windows is only up 2%. Xbox content and service revenue up 61% because 53 points of which is Activision. Xbox, where I got to find I have this in different places. Xbox hardware revenue declined 29%. Of course,
it's old. Nobody's going to buy it.
It's not doing good. The thing, I think it's this quarter, they're changing the way that they report their earnings, and so they're recasting earnings each quarter until the end of the fiscal year, so that things line up. And I thought it was going to be this quarter where we were going to see a drop off in revenues in more personal computing, the part of the business that has Windows and Xbox and Surface, because they were going to pull out commercial revenue and put it into Microsoft 365. But I don't really see that. It is lower. I'm trying to find where I can find that. If you look at like the three big business units, more personal computing is the smallest. It always is, $13 billion. It's been roughly 15, 16 for the past few quarters. So if that does represent that drop off, it's not as big as I would have expected. Intelligent Cloud is, well, there you go. This is what happened. Okay, so Intelligent Cloud, which has been their biggest business unit, is now their second biggest business unit, $24.1 billion. And their biggest is the productivity business processes, which is Microsoft 365 primarily, $28.3 billion. So that must be it. It must be I'm gonna have to go through it, and of course look at their post earnings.
It's Teams, obviously. It's
definitely Teams. It's the Teams consumer specifically. Yeah. So we'll look at this more in depth next week when I have a chance to really go through it. Plus, they're going to have that call, which they have every year or every quarter, so which hasn't happened yet. And, we'll get there. Anyway, that's it. That just happened.
Wow. All right.
Yep.
There you go.
All right. In other words, good news for Microsoft. Do they separate out AI revenue or costs or?
No, but they do talk about how much they spend. So I'm going to look at that too. Like, the cost of AI, so to speak, the investment that they make.
When you make $27 billion, $9 billion a month, you probably can afford a little AI.
You can, but investors are not going to put up with that forever, right? At some point, you want to.
At some point, it has to have returns.
But even if it costs $1 billion a month,
sure.
If it's making 5, what do you care?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it is making 5, yeah.
I don't think it's making anything yet.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. It's investing for the future. It's all upside from here.
I called that throwing away money or flushing it down the toilet. But yeah, I mean, investing.
You're renting a nuclear reactor.
We have different terms. I mean, whatever we could.
I told my wife that when I bought this hat. It's all upside from here.
It's all upside, right. It paid for itself. That's how I would have said it.
Yeah.
The power thing is a really interesting factor on this. We got to dig into further.
Huge expense.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and they.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm going to digress, and we should get to the back of the book.
Because he's Mr. Nuclear now. We got Mr. Nuclear.
Yeah.
Not nuclear, Mr. Nuclear. Okay, let's get it straight.
It's clear.
I think Tim Waltz, I hate to say it, I think he said nuclear.
Well,
you know what? I'm okay with it. He's speaking to the people.
He's a man of the people.
He's people.
He's a man of the people. We like that. All right, let's do our tips of the week.
Just quickly. When I get back from Mexico, I'm going to take another look at the Raspberry Pi. This is starting to get interesting again. I've always loved this part of the market. I know that Raspberry Pi started as an educational thing, but and that's a big part. And it's huge. It's great. I'm not dumping on that, but I think there's
got mine right
kind
here.
of an enthusiast aspect of the PC market that we don't really see in the same way we did in the early days when we called them home computers, when people would write their own programs and things. And so just in the past week, they've started selling SSDs, which is hilarious, right? Because typically the storage on these devices is SD based. And they also are now selling a faster, they call it an AI kit, but it's a hat that sits on top, connects to the main board. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but the original one was maybe 13 tops, something like that. And I want to say this new one is 28 tops, something.
Still respectable.
Inexpensively, 26 tops. So you can experiment with this, with AI, and this is really cool. I love Raspberry Pi. It's just something I don't need it, but it might be a time to take a look at this thing again. And by the way, this is a computer that could run like full-blown Windows if they just let it.
Well, and there's plenty of versions of Raspberry Pis now that don't use SD at all, that actually have eMMC and like better options for that. So,
sure.
Well, so this
any
one,
Pi
this
you
is,
care about should not have an SD.
This boots off, the mini flash, whatever you call it.
No, that's an SD card. Yeah, it's a micro SD.
Micro SD, yeah.
Yeah,
but you're saying you could have better memory.
Yeah, if you actually want a reliable one, you don't rely on SDs.
It's
so how would you do it via USB?
Yeah, they've got USB
Just
ports.
boot off USB.
Yeah,
Okay.
they usually have an SD as well, but you use that to do updates and things. But your main operating platform is something more reliable than an SD. SD's
yeah,
fail.
the SD. This one's booting off of that.
Yeah, and that's its main operating drive. And so you want better storage than that. If you
so how would I do that though?
Well, you'd need a different unit. You need one of the SM styles. Like there's different formats that use different storage.
Yeah. This is the base
I'm using
model.
them as obviously I got a couple Pi holes, and I used to my home assistant is running dedicated hardware. She doesn't use any SD. But since the new mast is up in the corner of the property, I'm going to be adding an ADSB antenna and an AIS antenna, and those actually under the hood, they're Raspberry Pis. So they're literally edge compute devices for tracking ships and planes and things like that. So cool. Yeah.
I just got it just because it's cool. And it's cheap. And I just want it. And I don't have it. It's not connected to anything.
They're using the Wayland display engine now instead of X 10 or whatever
that PDP is a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, sure.
PDP 11 emulator.
This is a couple of years ago now, but I gave my friend a Raspberry Pi, whatever it was at the time, 4 probably, inside a little case that looked like an Amiga 500, but just running an Amiga emulator in every game ever made.
Yeah.
It's
fantastic, and I find them as just great edge devices. They're reliable as long as you don't rely on an SD card.
So out of sync in our Discord says the Raspberry Pi 5 has a PCIe connector. I had no idea.
So that means
that's what I just. That's what I just said.
Did you just say that?
Yeah.
Is that on the board? Is that why I don't?
Well, I mean, they connect it. They now sell their own SS like NVMe.
Yeah, they have a hat. Yeah, the M.2 hat. Right. But that's on the board. Mine's in a case right now, so I wouldn't see it. I'd have.
And is that a 5 or is it a 4?
It's the latest, whatever the new one is.
So it's a 5.
Yeah, yeah. You could tell because it has USB-C to HDMI ports.
Yeah, this thing has evolved. Like in the beginning, you had to be connected with Ethernet or get a card or whatever, USB connector, and now it's just the stuff gets built in. It gets better. The processors get better. Obviously, it's neat. It's fun.
It's awesome. Very happy.
I think we're missing this in the PC space these days.
Well, like I said, it's about as fast as the Snapdragon Dev Kit and a little bit smaller. So.
Yeah, a little bit smaller.
I'm happy.
And the FCC is mad at it.
And it has a working HDMI port, which is two.
Wow.
Which is,
I'm tired of you guys crapping on it. I don't know what's happening here.
Okay. So, yes, I agree with you. Take a look at the Raspberry Pi. Take a look at it.
And then for some reason, for many weeks happen, and I've got nothing for an app pick. And this week I had like 8 or 9 or 10. So I'm not going to describe.
They're all
these
browsers.
They're all browsers.
A lot of them are browsers. So Chrome just came out with the major release. This awesome stuff going on there with they call it personalizing performance, but this you should look at that if you're using Chrome. It's definitely very interesting. Vivaldi, brand new interface in their new version 7. Opera, I think it was last week, did the release on desktop. Now have new versions on iOS and Android that do, among other things, the stuff you would want to do on a phone, like image recognition with using AI for free through Aria. So that's nice. And then Firefox 132 just came out, maybe even yesterday, whenever. And there's a random like Windows only feature that I'm curious. I looked this up. I couldn't find anything. Native support for Microsoft Play Ready encrypted media playback, which sounds like something from the 2005s or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but okay. I guess they didn't list any of the sites that actually use this technology, so I don't know. Maybe if you're on Windows and go to Netflix, it still uses it. I have no idea, but kind of interesting. Adobe Fresco, which is like a PC paintbrush type app, but modern, designed for computers or an iPad that has a pen or like a smart pen. Used to be mostly free, and there was some premium stuff they had under a subscription is now totally free, so you might as well take a look at that. Proton VPN is now, if you have to have a paid subscription, but it works. There's an Apple TV app, so actually I just installed that today, so I'm using that on my Apple TV here in Mexico. And then I don't know anything about this particular one, and I don't quite get it, but Fantastical Calendar is apparently a really well-regarded standalone calendar app on Mac, and I want to say iOS probably. There's a version available for Windows now as well. So there you go. I think I did that in about a minute.
Nice. I use Fantastical on the Mac. And,
you do? Interesting.
Wow, now you can have it on Windows as well.
Honestly, operating systems come with their own calendars, and probably for most people, that's fine.
It's sufficient.
Yeah, Fantastical, it's more about UI. I don't have, nobody wants to meet with me, so I don't have any of that meeting.
Well, I don't know how much time you spend in your calendar app either, right?
Right. Mostly it's just I want to enter stuff fast.
Yeah.
And then I want it to let me know.
Up and tell me when something's happening, right? In 30 minutes, right? That's how I use that.
That's all I need. Yeah.
Yeah. When the garbage has to be taken out.
Yeah.
My wife puts things on my calendar, so that can be irritating.
The folks who do Fantastical are up to now an Apple house, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but Windows is like the next big thing. So
is it?
I
Is
guess
it
it's going gangbusters.
I think this is a real vote of confidence for the future
so.
of Windows.
It's very
IA writers on Windows. It's just the whole world's going Windows. It's crazy.
It's amazing. Is it in the store, this Fantastical?
I have no idea.
Yes,
I would never.
In the store.
Of course it is.
I'm on Thurrott.com. I'm checking.
Anything could be in I didn't write the article. I did.
I know nothing. I disavow all knowledge of this story.
I'm not even sure this is real. I could have just said words that are just completely made up.
Randomly chaining words together.
And there it is from FlexiBits.
There you go.
I have a subscription to FlexiBits for the Mac. I guess it would apply to this. I'll check.
Is this all they make? Do they make other things?
They have fantastic. They have Card Hop, which is a contact manager that you don't use as well. And they have their icon. FlexiBits. They have other stuff. Yeah, it's a good little company. But it's like a Mac company. It's weird.
I know, which makes them immediately suspicious. Frankly,
what are you up to?
What's going on here?
What's the thinking here?
Jerks.
It looks just like Fantastical on the on the
Weird.
Mac.
How did that happen?
Is there some new cross-platform?
Yeah, it's called
tool?
Swift. Like Arc is written in Swift. Those guys use Swift.
Yeah, that's right.
Even on Windows.
I like Swift. It's a good language. Mm-hmm. I don't use it.
But it's not very mainstream on Windows yet.
Yeah, not wildly portable across platforms.
No. Well, there is an open source Swift, so I don't care. We are going to now switch gears and talk about RunAs Radio with Mr. Richard Campbell.
The update goddess herself, Arya Carly. Now, Arya Hansen, congratulations, recently married. On her third return back to my show to talk more about what's been going on with Update, although specifically around updates with ARM for Windows. So we talked a bit about Copilot plus PCs and just, the fact, is this going to eventually be just another Windows device? And Arya got into that. Yes, there's a transition time here with a special version of 24H2. There's a bunch of features that'll only surface if you are a Copilot plus PC, which all things we've talked about here as well. And their goal is it updates exactly the same. They're just, at the time when we recorded this, which was a few weeks ago, and even up to today, they're still not there yet. Like, it is a battle to try and get to that point. But that's her intent. And then we dove into a bit about the Insider program. Apparently there's 4 channels in the Insider program. And she ranked them in order of likely to blue screen. From Canary to Dev to Beta to Release Preview.
In the reverse order of likely to blue screen.
If you're really looking for a blue screen, go to Canary. But it would be a great conversation as usual. There's always things going on the update side, especially for business. They're phasing out the old update server, so that was a concern. But yeah, Copilot plus PC, just going to be a PC one of these days. It isn't yet, but it's going to be. And that's certainly where we came down to.
I think it's time, perhaps, for a little trip to Okanagan.
Yeah, we're going back. It was about 3 months ago that I came back from the Okanagan Valley with stories of, not only the crisis with their wine, because they had that big freeze that killed all the grapes, and they're still recovering from all that, but I had a chance to visit the Okanagan Spirits Craft Distillery, which has a visitor center in Kelowna, where we were, and then further north, up above the north part of the lakes, is where their main distillery is, in a place called Vernon. And these are the folks that started out making, because they are in fruit region, they made fruit brandies, kirsch and the likes, grappa, that kind of thing, including and vodkas and gin. But they eventually got into making whiskey as well. And while I was there, I took the opportunity to enter the lottery. And the lotteries was for an opportunity to buy the Laird of the Fintry edition. And I won the opportunity to buy a bottle.
You won the Laird of the Fintry?
I was very, very lucky. And so I ordered 2 bottles. And when I got home from my travels, there they are. I got 2 bottles.
Oh, it's the Laird of the Fintry.
Now, only one of these is the lottery edition. The reason they have the lottery, and it's right on the label there, is that they only make 5,000 bottles. And so I got bottle 1893.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And this is a great little marketing play for a small organization like this, that they only are going to produce so much. So great way to pump up your mailing list. And I had an opportunity to buy, and I immediately bought. And then they came back, the next day and said, "Would you like to buy more?" So I think they did say 30,000 people signed up for the lottery, but I don't know how many actually
stock up,
pulled the trigger. Now, again, we talked about Laird of the Fintry 3 months ago with their, what they called the BSV pipe. So first off, Laird of the Fintry is actually, Fintry is a location, the Fintry Delta. This is the set of lakes that are the Okanagan Lakes, have rivers running between them, and there is a delta area. And the Fintry Delta was owned back in the very early 1900s by one Captain James Cameron Dunwaters, who called himself the Laird of Fintry Delta. And he did import a private label whiskey from Scotland, which he then labeled as Laird of the Fintry. So that's got nothing to do with this, although apparently they've matched the label design.
I love the design.
Yeah, it's an old school, like 1910, 1920 style labeling. And so the one that I talked about 3 months ago was that BSV pipe, and this is a different edition. So they're following classic Scottish whiskey style. This is entirely barley, and barley from British Columbia. That's part of their claim to fame. And then they do an aging for 5 years in American oak, and that's virgin American oak. They have other editions where they use Jack Daniel barrels, but in this case it is actually raw oak. So 5 years in that, and then they do a finish in something else. So in the case of the BSV that we talked about last time, BSV pipe is actually a kind of port. And so they're doing a port finish. Very classic. This is actually a Quail's Gate Fock. So Quail's Gate is a very popular distillery.
Now we are going to get taken down.
Said that word very carefully.
What?
Foch. Fock. Yes. So Quail's Gate is a very well-known winery in the Okanagan Valley. There's more than 100 of them. This is one in the top 10. And the Fock is a particular kind of grape. It's a French wine hybrid grape that was developed in the early 1900s. So this is a hybridization of the Vitis ripiera and the Vitis ripiteris. These were considered inferior grapes, but they're very hardy. So when you're going to make wine in the colonies, these are the kinds of grapes you would take along. And it's actually named, the grape is named for Ferdinand Foch, who was the Supreme Allied Commander in World War I.
The general.
Yeah.
I think, yes.
Ferdinand Foch.
Field Marshal Foch.
That's right. Supreme Allied Commander.
Right.
So the grape arrived in North America in 1946, primarily on the East Coast, because it was tended to be growing in colder areas. So in the U.S., places like Minnesota and Ohio and Colorado, and in Canada, in Ontario, and Quebec, and Nova Scotia, and BC Okanagan Valley. Now, the funny part is this: it's a good grape, by the way. I've drank the wine, Quail's Gate Fock, one of my favorites, but it's not that popular. The French barely grow it because they're really against the hybrids. They stick strictly with Vitis vinifera, which is the sort of classic wine grape, and to the point now where there are EU rules about what grape you're allowed to grow in these areas, right? So in the 80s, a lot of the hybrid grapes were removed to replace with the classic grapes, right? And that name, the Vitis vinifera, covers a huge range. I literally looking up the names from Abruzco to the Zinfandel, which is the Austrian version of Zinfandel. This is the grape that has been made. They've literally made wine for 8,000 years. Like there is evidence of winemaking with this grape, with these kinds of grape in 6,000 BCs. So the fox an odd duck, but the good thing about that grape is that it depending on how you treat it, you get an array of wines, and you can get these big, rich wines, which is the direction that Quail's-Gate goes in, which makes it a good finishing barrel. It adds a lot of layer, and if you look at the color on this. For a 5-year-old, right? And they're not doing a chill filtration or coloring or anything. A lot of this has to have come from the wine. But remember, I bought 2. So this was the lottery bottle, of which there was only 5,000. I got one of them. But this, my friends, is the cask strength.
Oh, baby.
But they're both lot 11. So this is a weird opportunity. These are 2 exactly the same produced versions of whiskey. One has been cut with water to be 42%. That's the lottery edition. And this is what they call the black label cask strength.
You can compare them.
Is it 56%?
Interesting.
What order should we drink them in?
I don't know, but I like this idea.
And by we, I mean me, because I have it. But
so one's cask strength, 56% alcohol.
And one is 42.
And one is the nominal strength of
whiskey. So let's start with the 42, because it should have a little less cloud. And I won't pour too much, because I'm going to have to finish this to put the other one in. They use a synthetic cork. Oh, the air just filled with whiskey smells. So pretty medicinal, like a big alcohol note up front. Mm-hmm. Oh, but nice on the mouth. And there's that fruitiness from the wine. Like, nice. Wow. You know, the fact that this was this alcohol smelling for the 42 makes me vaguely frightened of that 56.
Yeah, no kidding.
Second swallows are always better. Yeah. No, see, that sort of leathery kind of, this is a beautiful, I'm not even going to finish this. I'm going to go grab another glass.
Yeah.
Good thing I have another.
Yeah, save it. Yeah. Fortunately, you have an entire set there. He's ready. He's ready to go.
So now,
Paul and I are just jealous as hell.
Yeah, I got 2 bottles here. But I did this with the Glenmorangie the other days too, when we were in Poland, and we had the original, and then we also had the Nectar d'Or, so you compare and contrast. Now, I think the color on this is a little bit darker.
Oh, it is. Bottle, yeah, look at that. It's rich looking. Yeah, definitely.
So, because in the end, if it's 42% alcohol, what's the other 58%? It's water, right?
Right.
So, here we go. This is the 56.
1 man, 2 bottles.
You know what? That's not even more. That's not more alcohol smelling. Granted, I've had a couple of sips already, so I'm a little tuned. But okay, yeah. Now, definitely more alcohol. Like, you got that sort of shot, but not mean. Not, hey, you just drank a really strong. Oh, it came on later, though. Hello.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up now.
That little bite that little bite in the cheeks you get when it's, a little astringent. Oh, that's good, though. Boy, oh, boy.
Mr. Campbell.
Normally you would do a cask strength first, because it's kind of fill you up, and then save that. Like, I think I'm going to put the 42, the lottery edition, in the decanter. But the cask strength is going to sit for special occasions, because that's always a fun starter. Nice. But it comes to the sort of truth of the flavors are from the wood. The grain and that alcohol, that's pretty standard. It's
from the wine
consistent.
barrel. Yeah,
that wine barrel lifted it all up.
Marshall
and made its thing. And I wish I'd kept a bit of that pipe back, so that I could have had a little of the port finish one as well alongside this.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Try those.
But it was entirely too tasty, and somehow the bottle ended up empty. I don't know. Anyway, I thought that'd be fun. It was great to have these waiting for me, and the fact that you can try 2 versions of the same doesn't happen very often. So I was delighted for the opportunity. You guys all got to see it.
Lovely.
Price for the lottery edition, $95 Canadian, not sold outside of Canada. Sorry. And then the cask strength, the 56%, is 115 Canadian. So I think that's like $20 American. No, that's not true. So about 25% less. But they not exporters. Find a friend in BC who can get it for you and bring it down. You'll be delighted with what you get.
Distillery.
This is one of those these little distilleries that stays under that 100,000 liters a year threshold, so they pay less tax, and so they generally only sell direct. They don't try and get into stores. They have relationships with different whiskey clubs, and they do these lotteries and things. That's how they make their living, and they can keep a little bit more money. And so a small team of people working in a little town in Vernon in a single distillery make a living making
That's cool.
50,000 bottles a year.
How far away is it?
4 hours drive from where I am.
Oh, so it's a bit of a...
Yeah, or we could, hop a little local jet up there in an hour.
Right. The 2024 Laird of Fintry Black Label Cask Strength Single Malt Whiskey. Baby.
Yeah, with a name like that, somebody had too much time on their hands. But that's a big label. But,
well, I'm glad you had this Wednesday time on your hands, folks, for joining us for the Windows Weekly program. That there is Richard Campbell, our whiskey guru. He also hosts a couple of podcasts called RunAs Radio and .NET Rocks. People love .NET Rocks, the show you do with Carl.
Yeah,
that's a fun show, too. 2 great shows. They're all at runasradio.com. Paul Thurrott is, of course, at thurrott.com, THURRO.com. His books are at leanpub.com, including Windows Everywhere and the Field Guide to Windows 11. We three... We brave, we few, we gather every Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Next week, we will be on Standard Time. So that means that we will be at 1900 UTC. So come by. You can watch us on, as I mentioned, all 8 streams. Discord for the club members, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, Facebook, LinkedIn, X.com, and now TikTok, which explains the hats.
Unless we get banned forever from Hatgate.
Nice.
They might have known you were going to whiskey because they will block. They will. They don't. They just. They don't promote it if it's got whiskey in it.
Well, next week's Tunisia, so we'll see how the bandwidth is there. Because Poland
where you're
went
going?
so well. Yeah, Tunisia.
Wow.
I mean,
and what are you doing in Tunisia?
Keynoting.
What's the conference?
The Tunisian Developers Conference. There's only one.
How interesting. Boy, you really get to go places. That's cool.
Yeah, no. They booked me a tour of Carthage.
Yeah.
The city that the Romans
Carthago
ruined
delenda
2,000 years
est.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to have some fun.
Wow.
Hang out in Carthage. And
is there much left? No, they salted it. They destroyed it.
Salted. It's been salted.
It was a famous enough city at the time that there were carvings of the huge circular harbor and things, and the remains are still
very
there.
famous.
So.
Yeah,
if I'm muted, it's not my fault. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
If you want to watch us live, I invite you to do so. But I hope you will also subscribe because, not because it costs money, but because that way we can't really count the downloads on the live version. So a couple of ways you can get the show. You go to twit.tv/WW. Paul has a copy at his website, thurrott.com. You can go to youtube.com. There is a Windows Weekly channel with all the video. Great for sharing clips and so forth. But honestly, for us, and probably for you, the best way to get the show is subscribe in your favorite podcast player. Or as some say, follow us. That way you'll get it automatically every Wednesday, rather. Did I say Tuesday? I meant Wednesday. Every Wednesday after the show has been produced. We're Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. Just to clarify that. Have a great Halloween. Do you get trick-or-treaters in Mexico?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Do you bring down some good American candy for those youngsters?
No. This candy is so readily available here. I don't even know why they want it.
There's lots of sweets.
Why would you pay for American chocolate when you're in Mexico?
We sit in restaurants and people who walk by try to sell us candy. It's crazy.
Yeah, we had up here in the rural areas. Nobody's coming by this place. It's too far, but the community hall has a great party that everybody goes to.
That's great.
We have a blast.
Well, have a wonderful Halloween, and good luck on Election Day. I hope your man wins or person.
We just had our provincial election, and we had a week of recounts. We had 3 districts that vote spread was like 12 or 20.
Yeah.
Tiny.
Those local elections, every vote counts.
They
Make
can
sure
be
you
tight.
vote.
Yeah, and it literally swung the incumbents got a majority by 1 seat.
Wow.
But only after 3 recounts of 3 important districts.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it was close. It was
Yeah.
really something.
Well, you don't have anything to worry about on
Well,
Tuesday,
you know how much rioting there was over it? None. We're Canadian. Come on. What are you
They're
talking
very
about?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did I step on your ballot? I'm
Hey,
sorry.
listen, as soon as it's that close, they do a manual count of everything.
it's
just
civilized.
Like there's a set of
It's a
procedures.
civilized place up there.
But at least two of them actually, the newcomers were ahead before the recount started, and then it flipped over. But
See,
it
they
was
didn't
super
declare
close.
victory, did they? They waited.
No, everybody held their breath and said, "Let's just see how this goes. Let's be civilized."
Yeah. I like that.
They will be the loyal opposition.
That's good too.
Yeah.
I was watching a show yesterday, and they said, "Let's do a loyalty toast," and they all said, "To the king." You don't do that anymore in
Nope.
Canada. No.
That doesn't sound good.
That being said, we do have a lieutenant general, a lieutenant governor here who said,
That's right.
who basically said you should form government now, and he's like, okay, there we
Okay.
go. So it's part of the ritual.
Whatever you want. I got the mace.
We know
I got
you
the
do.
other thing, whatever that's called, the crook. I don't know what it's called.
The scepter.
Scepter. Mace and scepter.
It has to be a scepter.
Yep.
What else? Is there anything else? Join the club. We'd love to have you. Twit.tv/clubtwit. And we will see you all next week. Winners and dozers alike on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.